What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey episode number 118 presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinny Parisi and I am over 4th of July.
Really? I had a great 4th of July.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm ready for bigger and better things.
4th of July used to be on my Mount Rushmore of holidays. I don't know if it is anymore. I'd have to think about it. It probably isn't, but I enjoy it. We went to see fireworks last night. That's the first time me and G ever went to see fireworks together.
Wow, in all that time, you never saw
In
fireworks together.
almost 6 years, we've never went and seen fireworks together.
Wow, that's crazy. That's fun. Did you watch the hot dog eating contest?
No, I did not. It was a disappointment though, so I'm kind of glad I didn't.
I lost money.
He only ate what 62.
Only, I mean, yeah.
But for him, that's like really bad for him. He
Well,
holds the record at 76.
Joey Parisi and I split a bet on over 71 and a half hot dogs. We both lost. So, but I do have, before we bring on our guest, I do have a bit of like a funny statistic. Most championship titles by a sport. The most Super Bowl wins belongs to Tom, as an individual, belongs to Tom Brady with 7. The most World Series titles belongs to Yogi Berra with 10. Big Devils fan, Yogi Berra. The most Stanley Cups, Henri Richard won 11. Of course, the great Maurice Richard, the Rockets' brother. The most NBA titles, Bill Russell with 11. And leading them all, the most mustard belts, Joey Chestnut with 15.
I was reading, he holds a ton of world records, and he actually holds the most hard-boiled eggs eaten in like 6 minutes at like 181, which is like ridiculous. Like his gas must smell terrible.
Horrible. And it was canceled, and then it wasn't. The Lightning, it was just a mess, but he ended up getting it done. Joey said the rain delay screwed us out of hitting the over, so we'll see what happens with that going forward. But we have a very special guest, and we're going to get to our very special guest in period number 1. Welcome to period number 1, where we're going to talk about, just a bunch of stuff with somebody I admire deeply. I've been following them on Twitter for a very long time. And then I noticed, I think it was like last year or the year before, I noticed that because I had a new Twitter account from the one I had way back in the day, I wasn't following him anymore. And I was like, wait a minute, I got to be following this guy. Of course, I'm talking about Dan Rice. Dan Rice covers the New Jersey Devils and women's hockey. Dan, how you doing? Frank, are you unable to hear Dan?
No, I can't hear Dan. But you're like blocky too. Something's going on.
Yeah, I have no idea because we were having this issue with Dan during the pre-show. So let's see if we can get that all figured out. He's muted. He's unmuted. I have no idea what's going on. It was working with Dan. Frank, can you see like levels or anything like that, or does it not show that for you?
Yeah, it says he's at 100.
I have no idea what's going on. He was working a little bit, and then he wasn't. I have no clue what's going on.
Maybe get out and get back in.
Yeah, try that, Dan. Try exiting the Streamyard link and relogging right back in.
Sometimes that's all you need. But, I mean, if you tuned in back in October, Dan might be a familiar face for the people watching. He's a Devils guy.
Absolutely.
You know a little bit more about him.
Well, last time we had Dan on, we kind of agreed, like, yeah, the Devils might be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And can you say they were okay this year?
I just can't believe that was October. That just doesn't seem right.
What do you mean?
It just seems like it was a lot sooner than that.
Like, we have Dan.
Check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, it worked. Sometimes turning your phone off and turning it back on. That's what they tell me at the Apple
Technology by the balls.
Yep. Yeah, they got you by the balls.
I know.
Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for the intro. I was going to say before I was not able to be heard, I don't know what the future holds for women's hockey. That's a whole nother conversation, but I appreciate the intro. You guys were talking about hot dog eating. I don't know if that's really a sport. That's, again, for another show. And you mentioned Yogi Berra. First couple of years I was covering the Devils. His granddaughter, Lindsay Berra, was also covering the team. She covered hockey in general, I think just in this area for ESPN magazine or ESPN.com or something like that. So small world. The hockey world is always super small, and just kind of wanted to finish that thread there.
Absolutely. And before we get into the Devils and the NHL, talk to us a little bit about the PHF. You know, what's going on with women's hockey and the future state of it in terms of club. We know on a national level it's huge and it's growing. And we saw the last time the Olympics were going on, the women's tournament was more, you know, it had more great storylines than the men's tournament. It really wasn't even close. What's going on? You can explain it to the people because we love talking women's hockey on this show.
As far as today, the PHF does no longer exist. It's been bought. Its assets, whatever that means, has been bought by this other group that's being funded by Billie Jean King and one of the minority owners for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So they've acquired the assets. The PHF has ceased to exist as of a week ago tomorrow. And there's a lot of uncertainty. The talk is there's going to be 6 teams. Everybody was kind of hoping next season it would be 7 PHF teams and 4 in the PWHPA. So you're already losing a bunch of jobs right there. Nobody knows where these teams are going to be. We think 2 of them will be in Toronto and Montreal, but other than that, it's kind of undecided. And for a lot of players who, you know, over the last 8-9 years have become pretty close with, especially the ones that have been around longer, naturally. There's a lot of uncertainty as to what's next for them. Again, there's only going to be 6 teams, so that limits the amount of spaces right there. And think of it from a goaltender's perspective. 6 teams is only 2-3 spots on a team. I do a podcast around the rink where one of my co-hosts is a former goalie, and we talked about this whole offseason of the goalie carousel spins pretty fast, and if you don't get a seat, like there's you know it's really tough world, and so there's a lot of goaltenders right now in women's hockey that are like don't know if they're going to play next season. Maybe they go overseas and play, but it was just the way that everything was handled, and I can go on forever about this, but to wrap it up, just the way that it was handled. Business is business. I get that to an extent. But the way that it was handled, where these players had no idea, and they all of a sudden, within an hour's notice, they had a town hall call on last Thursday night, and were told that the league doesn't exist anymore. That contract that you signed 2 months ago is no longer applicable. Hopefully you didn't buy a house. Hopefully you didn't put a down payment on a car. But those are real life situations that these players are dealing with. I talked to one player this weekend who said, you know, she had a day job as a occupational therapist, and she had quit heading into this upcoming season because she thought she was going to be making more money and was going to dedicate more time to training and practices and all that kind of stuff. And so she quit her job, and now she can't get it back. Like that's how business works, right? Like if she can get it back, but not at the level that she was at when she left. She'd kind of have to start from the bottom as far as pay grade goes. And we all know that's not fair, but that's business, unfortunately. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. I hope it all works out. You know, they say that this is just the start of what is going to be a permanent thing. I hope so. I've been down this road before and seen things, you know, one side says one thing and then the other thing happens. We'll see. Hopefully it works out for everybody. But there's a lot of people that I'm close with, and not just players, staff, whether that's coaching staffs or support staffs, whether it's trainers or social media people. Like those teams in that league just no longer exist anymore, and it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But onward we go, and hopefully in the long run, it's for the best, everybody's best interest. But it really does affect a lot of people in the immediate reaction or an immediate aftermath. Excuse me.
So are they just screwed out of their contracts then? They get no money. They don't like get paid at all.
They have in everybody's contract, which they signed, there was an at-will to termination clause. But so, and not all the information is being released by the leagues and the people involved. So it's a lot of drips and drabs, and you're talking to different people. But supposedly, there's a $1 million fund where all these players can kind of get like a percentage of what they had signed for. So if you signed an $80,000 contract, you're only getting $5,000.
Wow.
That's not going to help you with your bills
No.
necessarily, right? So we'll see. I don't, again, there's so many players aren't going to be playing now this upcoming season that had planned on playing. So it's a big scramble as to this league isn't going to start until January at the earliest. And a lot of players that I know they've already signed or are looking to sign for overseas, play in Finland, Sweden, Austria, Switzerland, all places where they have professional women's leagues. So hopefully they're able to get gigs there.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm stunned. I'm sad because I thought that it was up to 7 teams, right? When the PHF disbanded, you had Toronto, Minnesota, Boston, Buffalo, was the Metropolitan Riveters, obviously. I feel like I'm missing one though.
Connecticut Whale.
Oh, the Connecticut Whale.
And Montreal.
Montreal was fresh, right?
Yep.
They were pretty fresh.
Montreal it was their first season last season. And they had a really nice end of the season. They had 20 players already signed for next season. They were going to sign maybe 22 total. So they were done, basically. They had just announced 2 days prior to this news happening, they had just announced their coaching staff coming back and an addition. So clearly nobody knew this was happening. And people with money do things, and people without money usually suffer the consequences. So it was a sad day. And again, like I said, hopefully it all works out in the long run. But I've had a lot of tough conversations the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
That's a heartbreaker. Dan, we had you on back in October before the season started, and we talked a little bit about the Devils, obviously, and we kind of said we think they'll be okay, and they were way better than okay, and a lot of that could be given thanks to the Devils winning the draft lottery 2017 and 2019. And Dan, you know as much as any Devils fan what it means for your team to win the first overall pick. But as we saw this year, Connor Bedard went first overall to the Chicago Blackhawks. What is that going to do for the city of Chicago?
Oh, it's a huge boost, right? And they've already lost Kane and Taze. I've heard Kane may end up back, right? But it creates that enthusiasm again. Like I'm sure anybody that in the Chicago area, if they've had bought in tickets at any point in time, those season ticket reps called you and said, "Hey, you better get here and buy tickets to see Connor Bedard. This is the next one, right? The next one." When I was kind of getting into hockey as a journalist, Crosby was the next one, as the next one in line of Gretzky and Lemieux and Lindros, and then it was Crosby, and then McDavid, right? He was the next one. Bedard is in that kind of level, and everybody kind of expects him to be that. It's going to be one of those guys where it's worth the price of admission to go to games. And I'm sure in Chicago, you guys know, like Patrick Kane brought a lot of people into the stands, the way that he played the game and the skill set that he had. There's a lot of that similarity with Bedard and what he can do for the franchise. It can't be just him, though. You have to have pieces around. But it's a really good starting piece to kind of be like, this is one of our foundations. And as covering the Devils, we've kind of seen that where they got Nico in 2017. That's kind of the first pillar that you lay down. They did some really good drafting. They were able to get Jesper Bratt in the same draft, I believe. Didn't know it at the time, but now he's kind of one of them pillars too. 2 years later, you get really lucky again. You get Jack Hughes. That's another pillar right there. They end up trading Taylor Hall. They get a player like Dawson Mercer as a part of the package that they got. And now you start to see all these pieces developing and growing together. I had a lot less angry interactions with Devils fans this year because the team was really good. And when the team is really good and when the team is winning, there's a lot less there was a lot less stuff to complain about. And everybody's kind of like on the same team again. But for a couple of years, it was, a lot of me saying, just wait, just let these kids grow. 21 years old, 19 years old. You have to let them grow into develop into just more mature players, more mature bodies. Bedard is going to go through that a little bit. Like he's going to get pushed around. I've seen him. He's a little bit of a slight kid. His speed will alleviate a lot of that. But we see with Jack Hughes in New Jersey, like he can get away from most of the checks. Sometimes he can't. And he's been real good at taking the hit, getting right back up. He doesn't complain to the referees, which was something we saw with Crosby when he first came into the league. Crosby was known as a kind of quote unquote crybaby and kind of always whining, and he would take a penalty and he's screaming at the official from the penalty box. Like it's not easy to go, just jump into the NHL. Like this is a man's league. But Bedard is going to be a really good player, and I like some of the veterans that they've put around him. Taylor Hall would be great for him to kind of go through that. They had that here with Nico when he was drafted first overall. He's able to have a Taylor Hall to lean on. He's been through those experiences. They bring in a Foligno, right? That's another guy that's been through. He's been an NHL captain. Like he'll have the insulation to make sure that he's doing things the right way and progressing the right way in his career. But I know I'm excited to see him when Chicago comes to town. Like that's one of the games where it's like it's sometimes I might say to myself, it's Florida. Like I can miss that game. Like if I have something to do or I have work to do or something like that. I'll make sure I'm at the rink to see when Chicago comes to town, just because he's that kind of player.
Yeah, for sure. And Taylor Hall might help them win Max Celebrini with his lottery luck. Jack Hughes, he might not be considered like the next one. Like he was never touted quite like McDavid or even Matthews, but he was up there. People were pretty high on Jack Hughes when he was coming out of the development program, and he was the consensus #1 pick, set all sorts of American records playing with that team. He skipped right over college. He probably could have played a year at Michigan and might have done him some good early on, but he had ended up being all okay. This last season, he really exploded. And I don't think there's a doubt in anybody's mind now that Jack Hughes is a superstar in the NHL. What did you see from him this season from your vantage point?
He just grew. Like he got used to the NHL. Like he's like I mentioned, like he'll take the hit to make the play. We saw that a couple of times. I think just the one that sticks out to me is he took a hit against the wall. Made a kind of a blind pass to Dougie Hamilton, right? And that was
Vegas, I think.
Overtime winner, right?
Yep.
That's the type of thing where, like, maybe last year, the year before, he might have tried to duck away and get out of the way of that hit. But you can't always escape. Like, it's you can be fast, but sometimes you have to take that hit to make the play. And he's gotten stronger on his skates where he doesn't get knocked off as much. Just look at the playoffs, especially that first round. The Rangers, once again, they kind of submarined themselves, and they had a really nice team. They added players I didn't think they needed in Tarasenko and Kane, and it made them a little bit slower of a team. And the Devils it took them a while to get going, but once they figured out how to play their game in the playoffs, they were able to skate circles around most of the Rangers. And it's the end of a long season. Guys are banged up. There's guys banged up on both sides. But the Devils were able to find a way, and a lot of that was led by Hughes. You mentioned he wasn't the next one. I think that's, are touted as a next one. I think that's probably because he is American. Like all those other guys I mentioned, they're all Canadians, right? Like, and Canada hockey is king, of course. Like and the guys that go through the junior ranks, they're kind of always looked at a little differently, but. Jack Hughes is definitely going to be in that category, I think, and even Austin Matthews wasn't necessarily thought of as a next one kind of guy, but a still really, really good top end player. And U.S. hockey is looking pretty strong with all the Hughes boys, Austin Matthews, Stanley Cup champion Jack Eichel now, right? I mean,
the Tkachuk brothers.
Yeah, they have a lot of really good up and coming players, and it's kind of led as one of the top young guns is Jack Hughes, and he just consistency too. That was another thing this year. Very consistent, game to game. he's not always going to get the shots on goal. And I kind of love when he doesn't have to play center. Putting him on Hall's wing, I thought was a genius move where he doesn't have to worry about those defensive maybe responsibilities. You kind of let Jack be Jack. Like he has a really good hockey IQ where he's able to read the game. And you just have to look to that. I think it was game 3 against the Rangers, the early breakaway goal that he scored. Like that's a play that they run over and over again during the season where he's just kind of circling at the top. And, I think it was Siegenthaler just kind of chucks the puck in the middle of the ice. And Hughes is smart enough to know if he's got to step on a guy or not. And I think he had 2 steps on whoever that poor soul defenseman was that he smoked. But he's able to really make a difference. And that was a huge, huge goal, I thought, and kind of shifting the momentum in that series where, like, the Devils finally had a kind of a lead. And they were able to kind of play their game, again, in playoff hockey. Like, it's going to be different than the regular season. And I look at the Rangers, and they've added a lot more, a player like Blake Wheeler. Like, I'm sure he'll create a lot of havoc during the regular season and stuff like that. But if they get into a series against a smaller, younger, faster team again, like the Devils, it might be another first-round exit, no matter who's in goal and how well they're playing. Because the Rangers goaltender was great in that series, but the Devils were just able to skate circles and really tire out the Rangers, and that a lot of that was spearheaded by Jack and his band of merry men that kind of like, he goes down and blocks shots. That really kind of gets everybody going. Like, if Jack's doing it, like, shit, I better get down and block a shot, or I better, get this pass out of the zone because he might be looking to make a breakaway. Like, he really kind of, and I love that he's not the captain. I don't know if I said this on this show or if I said it with the other guys. I've loved from day one that they had Jack and Nico is the captain, and Jack doesn't have to worry about that stuff. Like, Jack's still going to be Jack. He's still going to be the star. It's just one little less thing that he has to worry about. And God bless Nico for the year and a half, that he had to come and speak to us in the media after a lot of really tough losses. And he took it like a champ. Not everybody can go through that and deal with those things. And I love the fact that Jack can just be his own player and doesn't have that little extra burden of having that C on his jersey, as silly as it sounds.
No, it makes sense. I want to touch on the draft a little bit more, though. The Devils did not have a first-round draft pick this year, but instead they had 5 other picks. They drafted a 2nd, a 4th, a 5th, and I believe 2 6th-round picks. What are some of the takeaways from these players that were added to the team's farm system? Because it's dwindling. They've become a better team, and the farm's being depleted, but added 5 more players to the system. What does that mean to you guys?
For me, it's just more depth. Like, the draft, I know I'll always say this, it's a crapshoot. Like, the Devils, I mentioned Dawson Mercer. They picked him, right? Vinny can correct me if I'm wrong. They picked him after Alexander Holtz in that same draft.
He was the 2nd of 3 picks.
Right. So if you go back and you redraft that, right, Holtz probably isn't even a first rounder.
No, he probably goes ahead of Lafreniere, who went first.
Maybe, right. But and that's, it's all kind of subjective, and it depends on where you end up, what the path is for you. So like you mentioned, the Devils have lost a little bit of depth. They've traded away some guys like a Zetterlund, Riley Walsh recently. So this draft is just kind of like restocking all that. Like, they're going to have their AHL minor league guys, and they're going to have their young kind of developing under our own watch kind of players. And they'll have players that'll be in college or overseas. It's all, every player has their own path, and the draft is an opportunity to kind of maybe take a hidden gem and turn them into, something else. I went to the draft in 2017. I don't even remember them drafting Jesper Bratt. Like, I remember them taking Boquist that year, right? I think, and Riley Walsh was another one. I remember talking to them. Bratt might not. He probably wasn't at the draft, but I don't.
I think Bratt was the year before. Bratt was 2016. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why I wouldn't remember him. But to that point though, like some of those other guys that they drafted that year, like they're either still kind of floating around or they're somewhere else. Like especially those late round picks, you never know what you're really going to get. It could be Jesper Bratt, it could be Alexander Holtz. Like you don't know. Like, and that's not to crap on Holtz. Like he's still a really 21, still a really young player. Still has a bright future. It might not be in New Jersey. You look at the amount of wings that they have now. Like, where does Holtz fit? Like, does it make sense to keep him on the roster to play him third or fourth line minutes, or be that spare forward like he was at the start of the season? Like, or does it make sense to have him in the minors to play top line AHL minutes? Or does he end up, somewhere else? Like maybe his best path is on another team that isn't where the Devils are at as far as their trajectory and their upward arc, because they're clearly going up. And I think they're going to be, you can never say for sure, but it really does feel like this is the beginning of a 5, 6, 7 year run where they make the playoffs every year. And then all you got to do is get in. After that, it's kind of you roll the dice, and everything depends on matchups, depends on injuries, depends on goalies playing out of their minds. Like there's so many, Aiden Hill wasn't the best goalie going into the playoffs last year, right? I mean, so a lot of different things can happen, and you just have to get in. They don't have to finish first in the division. They don't have to be the last wild card. Like, it doesn't matter. They just have to get in. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's they should be able to, again, barring injury, they should be able to be. This should be sustainable over at least 5 to 6, 7 year span.
100%. I haven't really ranked the prospect farms yet. It's kind of still a little too close after the draft. I think the Devils would probably fall 5, 6, 7. And Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec are kind of holding them afloat. I do think once those guys graduate, the Devils prospect farm probably does fall. I honestly think it could fall like 10, 11, 12 spots in the whole league once those two. I mean, you have two of the – I honestly think they're probably the two highest rated defense prospects in the league right now. And, Korchinski in Chicago, Lane Hudson in Montreal, those guys will have something to say about that too. But those guys are probably the top two. Have you gotten to watch Nemec at all? I know we've all gotten to see Hughes play just a little bit. He played the final 2 games of the season, and then he really started to make an impact in the Carolina series after not touching the ice in the Ranger series. What's your takeaway on those two guys so far?
Yeah, Hughes, again, you could kind of echo the statements about his brother. He's the real deal. To see him be able to do some of the things he did and know that he's just is he 19? I mean, man, like when he gets some seasoning, when he fills out a little bit, he's going to be really, really fun to watch. Nemec, I haven't seen as much of as Hughes. And Nemec, I haven't seen in person since preseason. Side note, one of the silver linings of the PHF no longer existing is I'll have a little bit more free time to maybe go up to Utica and see a couple of games there, or when they come a little bit closer into if they have some games in Pennsylvania or Connecticut, I can make trips over there. But those are going to be two linchpins on their back end for the next 5 years. And you're right. Once they've become regular NHLers, the prospect rank will drop. That's okay. Like, you just kind of need to keep restocking that cupboard the next couple of drafts, make some shrewd moves, find maybe a good player on waivers here or there that you can end up keeping in the minors or something like that. Like, I was surprised they didn't take Zadina, who was on waivers from Detroit, just to, and I think maybe they figured, well, we already have Holtz. What do we need that? Because it's like the same thing. I think they're both kind of players in the same boat where they just really haven't found their footing or their path. And maybe they're not in the right settings. And if they make a 1-for-1 swap, I want to take credit for it now, but I don't think that's going to happen. But just saying, like, the Nemec, I think, is going to be a big, big piece of their future. And that's why they let Ryan Graves go, right? That's why they traded Damon Severson and let him go. Um, I think they're going to be really, really good. Again, no injuries. They have to find a little bit more consistency in the goaltending when it comes to the postseason. But during the regular season, they got exactly what they needed, where it was just make a save. You just have to make like some of the just average saves, and you're going to keep this team in games, and they're going to score. They have the firepower to score, and now they have even more. They have Timo Meier is going to have a full camp. Tyler Toffoli is going to have a full camp. He's not coming in halfway through the season. They've kept a lot of the pieces together, so there's not going to be a big learning curve. Camp starts, they're going to hit the ground running and try and be better than last season.
Yeah, I think the Devils are going to be just fine. I think they're going to be a pretty good team. They've made a lot of offseason moves so far. Their two biggest, and you mentioned Timo Meier, is them re-signing Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt on 8-year deals. I mean, what does that mean to you for the Devils?
It means I'm going to have some familiar faces for the next 8 years in the locker room to talk to, which is always a good thing because it was kind of sad at the end of this year, saying goodbye to Severson. We kind of knew the writing was on the wall, and there you can kind of read the room, and unless there was a major trade, he wasn't going to be able to be a part of this anymore. So it was just a matter of hey, thanks for always being a stand-up guy and coming out and talking to us when he played through a lot of tough seasons, tough nights, often where he was the GOAT, and whether it was an own goal or a bad turnover, he always came out and made time for us. So you appreciate that. Mm-hmm. For these guys to commit for 8 years means that they want to be here, means that the group wants to stay together. Nobody's making over $10 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? On the average season, right? So nobody's really broke the bank where you have to start letting people go to fit other people in, kind of like we've seen with Tampa, where they've had to do a lot of gymnastics to kind of keep their team together. Mm-hmm. I look at Tampa. I look at even the past Pittsburgh teams that won the 2010s, right? Or 2007 to the 2010s, where they were able to keep kind of their core players together, and you just kind of add pieces around. Now Pittsburgh would go all out, and it was let's go get Marian Hossa this year, and let's go get
Phil Kessel,
Jerome McKinley this year, right? Or, let's go get this guy. They've always kind of went out and maybe the Devils will do that eventually, but to lock up your wings for 8 years, Meier and Bratt, hopefully Mercer is another guy that ends up signing long term. Toffoli he's going to be on the last year. He said he wants to stay here, so maybe you give him 4 or 5 years. You keep that core together, and then I think the future is really bright, as we've kind of said a number of times here. And I think those guys' commitment, other players around the league, they kind of noticed that. And now they just need to find, I think, a kind of bona fide 1A goalie, or just really have Akira Schmid just kind of continually develop and grow into the goalie we all think he could be. I don't think he's there yet. I think he showed some nice flashes. But I'm not necessarily to say all right, kid, it's all yours. Take the reins. I don't think we're at that point yet, and I don't think it would be fair to him. He hasn't played a full NHL season either. So, but future is definitely bright.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about it too. One thing I also wanted to touch on with you, you brought up Nico Hischier, and he's the captain, and he's just kind of like the golden boy of the team. I know Jack Hughes, he does have a higher ceiling offensively, which he showed this year, but Hischier came in second in Selke voting, and the only guy that beat him is the guy who won 6. You can name the trophy after him at this point, Bergeron. And I always say, when I have kids, Bergeron is the player I'm going to show them highlights of. You got to be that. That's a perfect hockey player. And I think he's kind of on that path. I do think he grabs a Selke trophy or two in his day, if he's not the favorite going into next year, if Bergeron retires. And I think of some of the captains around the NHL. You got Crosby. Crosby's very responsible two-way player. He kind of developed that a little bit as the years went on. But, David, he's a captain, but you could give him the C, both A's, and make him the coach, and he'd still freaking have 150 points. He's that good. But other guys who are captains around the league aren't necessarily always just these offensive studs. They're kind of the guys that play the game the right way and lead by example. He's one of those guys. Can you talk about what his game? We were at that draft, Frank and I too, in Chicago in 2017 because it's just around the block from where we live, so it was convenient. And the Devils just happened to have the number 1 pick. It was awesome. Just worked out so well for me. But yeah, I mean, you could talk all day about how great he is in every way.
Oh, he's just fantastic. He does all the little things right, and I feel like sometimes I'm spoiled where I sit up in the press box is really high up. But one of the advantages is you can kind of watch kind of behind the play things, and it does look a lot slower than the game actually is. But you're kind of able to maybe focus on one player and just kind of like shadow them for their shifts. And I love watching Nico because he's kind of always in the right spot. He makes passes sometimes where it's like, how did he know that guy was there? But he's very, very attentive, right? Attention to detail, like all the things that all these great two-way centers are. He's very aware of his surroundings. Doesn't really get he will get caught, I guess, a little. He's taken some heavy hits, but he's pretty good at avoiding them too. Just a guy that plays in every situation, not afraid to go to the front of the net. I love that about him. Maybe doesn't need to stay in front of the net anymore, like when the team was kind of bad and they had a lot of shooters and he ended up taking one in the mouth. I kind of like him a little bit more on the outside where he can create a little bit more. But just a joy to watch. Like you said, kind of does everything the right way. And I love his just honesty. Again, as a journalist, as somebody who deals with him kind of almost on a night-to-night basis, because a lot of nights he is available to us to speak. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. When they lose, you could see it in his face that it hurts him. And you know, some guys you can't always say that about. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, like not saying the guys don't care, but maybe Nico cares a little too much. And I think that's a good thing, though. I think caring is a really good asset to have, and I think it makes guys want to, follow him into battle. For if you want to use that cliche, there's no question that he's the leader of that team, and that team, they follow his lead, and Jack is obviously a part of that, and. Nico's had a lot of really good guys to lean on to pick their brains. But eventually you have to do things your own way. You add in bits of maybe what he got from Bryce Salvador or what he got from Ken Danico or from Taylor Hall. But at the end of the day, he has to be his own person. And clearly, everybody kind of has responded to that. And I'm a big Nico fan, and another guy that's locked up for the next 7 years. I'm excited to be able to have that opportunity to be around him and to watch what he can do with this team and with this group over the next handful of years.
Dan, the Devils had the best season-to-season turnaround in NHL history. It had to be a blast to watch. I know Vinny was having a blast watching it. I'm sure you were having a blast watching it. Is this something we could expect from the Devils this year, or are your expectations a little bit different coming into the year?
I don't think they're going to set a record for the biggest improvement again. I don't think that's what you're trying to ask.
What would they need to have? Like 100 and
lose like one game or something.
Yeah.
My there's still, I'm sure, a couple of moves that need to be made. But we have an idea of what the team's going to look like, I think, right? I don't think there are going to be that many surprises. I expect kind of a cross between last year and what I expected this year, or what I expected last year, which was be in contention for a playoff spot. Like, some teams are going to get better that were behind you. Some teams that were in the playoffs are going to get worse. I don't think Boston's going to be what they were. There's no way they're duplicating that. I don't think Florida is going to maybe necessarily have the type of team that they had last season. I know a bunch of guys are hurt, right? So they traded a couple of pieces. Florida was a team where they honestly really surprised the crap out of me, where I didn't think they had a chance. And prove me wrong. What do I know? They went to the final, but they were a team where it was like I felt like if the Devils got them in the first or second round, they would have been able to beat them. Like I didn't have any doubt in my mind that was going to happen, and then to see them go on the run they went on was impressive. Again, the Metro is always tough. You just have to get a playoff spot. I think looking at what they have, building off of what they had last season, the amount of people I think that are coming back, again, barring anything really crazy, I see no reason why they can't finish second, third, fourth in the division again. And then from there, depends on matchups, depends on who's hurt. But I think going forward, the expectation is make the playoffs. It's not win the division, not finish first in the conference or the league. Just make the playoffs. I'm expecting them the next 5-6 years to make the playoffs. If Nico and Jack get hurt, knock on wood, that probably doesn't happen. I don't think they have enough guys that can carry them. Maybe they do. I don't know. But if they had Nico misses 30 games, Jack misses 40 games, Dougie Hamilton misses 30 games, they probably ain't making the playoffs. So you need to have a few things break right. But I do believe they're going to be in the playoffs again this year and the year after and the year after that.
Yeah, for sure. And everything you said that you're not, they're all things they can do. They could absolutely be the top team in the conference this year. I'd be 0% surprised. They could win the Metropolitan Division. I'd be 0% surprised. But like you said, where you finish doesn't really matter once the dance starts because Aiden Hill and Darcy Kemper are the last two Stanley Cup champions. Sometimes a goalie just gets hot. But before that, you had Vasilevsky, who might be on the NHL's all-time Mount Rushmore of goaltenders. If he's not, he's close. It's different every year. You hope the Devils are able to make at least one deep run with this core. Obviously, multiple would be really nice and really fun. One last thing I wanted to ask you, and then we'll let Frank let you ask one more. There's a lot of rumors surrounding the goaltending situation. And I know the Devils, they're kind of starting to push the cap a little bit, which is what good things do. You can expect two things from good teams. They're not going to have a lot of room to spend, and they're not going to have the greatest farm system anymore, after years and years of being good. The Devils are still kind of approaching the cap. They're not at the cap or over it yet, and they still have a decent farm system. But, in 3 years, their farm system's going to be poop, and they're going to be right near the cap. And you look at the bottom farm systems in the league, it's Tampa, it's Pittsburgh, it's Boston, all the teams that have been great for so long. But do you think there's room to make one of these rumors come true about Connor Hellebuck or UC Saros? Or maybe even you roll the dice on a John Gibson, who's been bad for 3 years, but we know the talent that's in there for him if he was on a better team. Where are you at on that? Because, something people forget, 2 goalies in Devils history have ever won 30 games in a single season. Martin Brodeur times 16 and Vitek Vanacek.
Yeah, if there's a goalie available or any one of those 3 available, I would explore it at least. Find out what it would take. If you're acquire, I would assume, all 3 of them, right? You would have to trade for. So Vitek would probably be a part of the package going the other way because you're not going to leave this team with no goalie. I think they would be upgrades over Vitek, and that's no kind of disrespect to Vitek. I love the way that he played last season. Like I said, just make the saves that you need to make, and everything else will take care of itself. What worries me is in the playoffs, I saw a little kind of deer in headlights look in him. Whereas Schmid was kind of just I didn't see any of that, but I also saw a very young goaltender who wasn't ready to necessarily play at the NHL speed and still took out the Rangers and had some pretty nice moments against Carolina as well. I think you have to at least explore making an upgrade. That doesn't mean you have to. That doesn't mean Vitek can't bounce back and have an even better season. If he can win 30 games again this season, that's a good starting point. And you just got to get another 15 to 20 maybe out of your other goaltender, or you got to pick up a lot of loser points. But he's just got to keep them in games. I've kind of always liked Hellebuck. I understand the concerns about maybe the financial aspect of what he wants or what his deal is or what it's going to look like. But I feel like if you added any one of those three, the three of us and a lot of other people would say the Devils are Eastern Conference, if not Stanley Cup favorites. You look at the moves that they've made, keeping that team together, keeping Meyer for 8 years, adding to Foley. Like their top nine is almost unmatched. There's a couple of other teams that can kind of go toe to toe with their top nine, but not a lot of others. The defenses, they're not like the shutdown defense like I grew up watching, but they can do the job. I don't think Dougie's winning any Norrises, but he doesn't have to. Like that's not why he's here. If you added a Gibson behind these guys, a Hellebuck, a UC Saros, it becomes cup or bust. Then you ask me that question, what's my expectation? I say it's not just make the playoffs, it's cup or bust, because that's really their weak spot, and it's not really a weak spot. It's just a kind of a sore spot, I guess, is the goaltending. But they're perfectly capable of, like they were last season, getting them to the playoffs. And then again, it's anything can happen.
Vin, I'm glad you asked about the goaltending. You know how I feel about the goaltending. I'm glad Mackenzie Blackwood's off the team now. I think he was weighing him down, in all honesty. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, Devils are the 2024 Stanley Cup champions. On the road to winning the Stanley Cup, or just throughout the season in general, who is the biggest threat to the Devils next season?
Oh, you mean like other teams?
Other teams, it could be in the Metro, or teams you think they're going to have the biggest problems facing on their road to winning the Cup if they were to win the Cup?
Before you answer, Dan, I do want to know, I think Blake Wheeler makes the Rangers better against everyone they will play next season, except for the Devils and the Hurricanes. He slows them down against the Devils and Hurricanes. He'll be weak. Jack Hughes will dance floors around him. But, when they play the Islanders or so-and-so, so I don't know if the Rangers were going to be in the mix for you. I just wanted to throw that in there.
The Rangers were not on that list of teams that I was going to, or number of teams I was going to mention. Carolina, just because of the way that they're coached, and they're like the Devils were when I was growing up in 1995, 96, 97. Carolina's an interchangeable flock of forwards. You could move anybody up and down that lineup, first line, third line, second line, penalty kill, power play. They all can play the same role. And maybe you can't focus on one guy to neutralize. And that's why I think they gave them fits. The other team would be Tampa Bay. In that scenario, it would have to be either, I guess, a conference final, or Tampa finishes first in the division. Devils get a wild card, and they run into Tampa Bay. We've kind of tried to go through Vasilevsky before, different team, but that would not be a fun series. That would be because if he gets in their head, like, it's over. Like, it's he's that good of a goaltender. He reminds me a lot of Marty, where he would just kind of get in people's heads, and it forces you to hesitate and maybe not get as good a shot as you would want, or you hesitate and the shot goes wide, or he just Jedi mind tricks the crap out of you, and he's big too. Like, and when you do get a good shot, like, he's usually in position to swallow it up. Like, those would be the two teams that worry me, that if they cross them at any point in the postseason, that's a really, really tough series that I would probably give the advantage to the other team. Anybody else, I'm probably picking the Devils in 7, just to play it safe.
Wow, 7.
I appreciate the honesty. And listen, there are so many other moves that they can make. I agree with you. Their top 6 is for sure right there with the best of the league, especially if Mercer could kind of recreate what he did last year offensively with the 27 goals or whatnot, possibly. Who knows? Maybe even improve on that because he spent a lot of time on the third line last year too. What if next year he's getting firm top 6 minutes no matter what, back and forth between the first and second line? We'll see if Palat and Haula can form a little bit of chemistry there on the third line. I think a lot of things could go a lot of good ways for them. I'm excited about it. They have the third best odds according to DraftKings. No free ads, but that's the last app I looked, and they have the third best odds to win the Stanley Cup, only behind Colorado and Toronto. And you didn't name the Leafs, and I'm a little surprised you didn't name the Leafs. I know they always choke, but adding Bertuzzi and Domi, no, Dan.
Who's their goalie?
Frankie.
Yeah.
Frank, you're their goalie.
It's all right.
You'd probably be equally as effective, no?
I mean, have you seen me play shinny before?
You're unstoppable. You're
I know.
impossible to beat. That's what I'm
I
saying.
know. I've had some great saves.
100%. Dan, we can't thank you enough for coming on our show. It has been an absolute blast talking hockey with you. I always appreciate the candid answers and honesty, and it's very well taken by us. We're very happy to have you.
Oh, thanks. I always look forward to these when anybody reaches out to me, and I'm happy to come on anytime you guys want. It's crazy. You said last time we did it was the beginning of the season. That feels like an eon ago. Like,
See,
everything.
that's what I said.
I mean, the season is so long as it is, and just everything that I've kind of gone through the last week or so with the women's league and everything. It's just time is a joke sometimes, and it's just it's crazy. But always appreciated. I love the questions you guys bring. Really keep me on my toes, make me think. So keep up the great work.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
We'll have you back right before the season again, and you can tell us
Absolutely.
how okay the Devils are going to be, and then we'll watch them go on the best run in team history again.
Sounds like a plan. We got to keep the routine going, right? I mean, we're
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dan, promote your stuff really quick before you head out.
You can find me on Twitter, as they say, the Twitterverse, at @dricehockey or at Dr. Ice Hockey, depending on how you want to read that. Everybody kind of takes it differently.
Oh, yeah.
You can read my work over at Pucks and Pitchforks. Haven't done anything recent, but next week is New Jersey Devils development camp. I will be over there. I think it's Wednesday night after they do the 3-on-3 scrimmages. So looking forward to bother a couple of young kids with some of my crazy questions. Have some content for Pucks and Pitchforks audience. If you're into women's hockey, my work is over at the Ice Garden. I also host a show on Twitter that is available the next day on podcast form called Around the Rink. Don't really know what the future of that show is going to be. I think I'm going to keep doing it. I can't see me not. Just going to have to pivot a little bit, and actually have a couple of players lined up that had already signed to play overseas next season. So I kind of want to get, and they played in the PHF last season. So I kind of want to bring them on to get their perspective of kind of watching this all crumble from the background, where they were heading overseas with hopes of playing there for a year, which is a great thing to do, and you get to explore Austria and Germany and the Netherlands, and go crazy, kids, if you could do it. But and then come back in a year and hope to come back to the PHF. So I'm really curious to see what they have to say. But that's all I got. Support everybody at Pucks and Pitchforks and the Ice Guard, and support these two fine gentlemen here tonight or this afternoon talking with us. And thank you again for giving me a line to be here and hang out with you guys.
Of course. Make sure you follow him at D Rice Hockey or Dr. Ice Hockey. Literally would have never pulled that up. People who say that are crazy. Their brains work differently than mine. Dan, we can't thank you enough. Everybody, we would like to send you to period number 2. Make sure you go follow Dr. Ice Hockey on Twitter right now. You think he's an actual doctor?
No, I do not. But
I do.
But his knowledge in hockey makes me think he's a doctor in hockey. So it makes sense.
100%. He's Dr. Ice Hockey. 100%. It was fun. It was a good time. I like talking Devils with Dan.
I like about Dan is he is so knowledgeable. You can ask him anything on the spot. He'll give it to you.
And he's thoughtful with his answers.
He's
Sometimes we have people on. We're like, hey, man, what did you think of Nico Hischier's season? And they're like, yeah, it was good. He was nominated for the Selke Trophy. He had 80 points. It was good. I really like seeing the improvement this year.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, done. You roll through 10 questions each in 5 minutes.
Right.
Dan, we asked him like what, 4 each, 5
I
each?
only got through 5, and I normally have always like 10 questions on tap just in case, and you kind of feel out how it's going. I only got through half because his answers are so in depth, and I love that about him.
Yeah, and I remembered that from last time. I didn't even write down any questions. I knew I was asking him about what happened about PHF, Hughes, Hellebuck, Meyer, whatever you didn't ask. It was just going to come up with a devil's question on the spot because that's the kind of thoughtfulness he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frank, now that Dan is gone and we are into period number 2, we are going to talk about the 2023 NHL draft where your team, the Chicago Blackhawks, made the number 1 overall pick. Of course, they selected Regina Pats forward Connor Bedard. It is officially Bedard season in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be the best player at his sport in town.
I have to agree. I mean, what they're saying about him, I heard him described during the draft like I've never heard him described before, that he skates like McDavid and he shoots like Matthews. So it's almost like they had a kid together. And here you got Connor Bedard. And I don't know if it's true or not. We'll see. But I do think he's going to be wildly successful. I asked Dan about it. Dan knows how special he is. And I think that fans of Chicago, or even like not the diehard fans, but just like the casual Blackhawks fans, don't really know what he means or what he's going to mean to the city and what he's going to do for the Blackhawks. Like, I keep trying to hype him up. And I keep trying to tell people, like, you have no idea how much this means and what this means. And I guess they're just going to have to wait and see. And maybe they'll have a better idea after this year, but probably not, because he's not going to unlock his full potential this season. But they'll get a taste in the years to come.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a disappointing season would be like 20 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like most rookies, if they hit 20, they win the Calder Trophy. I don't think if they talk about McDavid skating for Bedard, they have to mean like the way he skates and how like natural it is to him. McDusty's speed is unlike anything I've ever. So maybe they mean like the style of skating, but like I'm not too sure about. It's just weird when people think of McDavid skating, they think of how he can get to 0 from 100 in one stride. But the Matthews shot thing, that's interesting to me. But I think Connor Bedard scores 70 goals. I said it in his career, not next year. But in his career.
Imagine if he did it next year. That would be insane.
No, if he did it next year, I would think he could hit 100.
No,
I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah. 100%. If he
That'd be
scored
nuts.
70 as an 18-year-old rookie, why the H couldn't he hit 100 when he's 26?
If he scores 70 as a rookie, he's breaking 1,000 goals.
Wouldn't that be something if he breaks Ovechkin's eventual record? Because I think Ovechkin's going to get 1,000. Well, he might come just short of 1,000. We'll see. But, I mean, Connor Bedard, he's unreal, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks' new face of the franchise. Have you started to, like, dream up line combinations in your head or anything like that yet?
Yeah, I do. I actually have some written down on my phone, and I don't have my phone near me. One of them, well, I think Bedard will obviously be on the top lines, and Taylor Hall will be his left wing, and his right wing would probably be Lucas Reichel, is my guess.
Interesting.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Just for Bedard, or just like
Yeah, with Bedard.
I got my phone now. Yeah, I mean, I have him on the first. He's got to be on the first line.
If he doesn't, like in the first game, that just means Luke Richardson is like playing hardball with him because he was a rookie. Like Jack Hughes' first game, he was on the third line.
Right now, I got Bedard centering Reichel and Hall.
Okay.
Then I got Tyler Johnson centering Andreas Athanasiou and Taylor Radish. The third line, I got Dickinson centering Blackwell and Kurashev. And then the fourth line will probably be Donato centering Foligno and Perry.
Yeah, 100%.
So
that fourth line, I like Kurashev with Bedard more right now, though.
Really?
Yeah, only because
instead of Hall?
No.
Well, they're both left wings.
Did I say Kurashev? I meant Radish.
Oh.
I meant Taylor Radish.
There you go.
Athanasiou.
That makes sense.
I would like to see Athanasiou play with Reichel. Because I think Reichel's ability to make plays can it could play with Athanasiou's speed. Athanasiou is probably the fastest player on the Hawks, either him or Taylor Hall. But I don't think there's a doubt that Hall and Bedard will at least start. They'll get together at some point. If in the first game of the season, Richardson does do that thing where they like start the rookie on the third line, I really wouldn't be all that surprised, but like we all know that Hall will eventually play with Bedard on the top line for like 80% of the season as long as everybody.
Absolutely. It's got to be. And it was funny because he wears 98. We saw the jersey, which was kind of like only McDavid and him are the two I remember that actually had their jersey number pulled, which is pretty spectacular. What do you think about 98?
I love it.
I like
absolutely
it.
love it.
I like it.
He wasn't born in 98, which is like that's why McDavid wore 97 and whatnot. But I mean, hey, 98's a cool number. It's like one of those big numbers. A lot of the stars are picking the big numbers right now. Jack Hughes is 86, McDavid's 97. Austin Matthews has not a big number, but it's like a unique number, 34. You know, I just think this stuff plays. So number 98 is going to be a big one in the history of Chicago sports, I think.
Absolutely.
100%. Right after Bedard was taken, big shakeup. Big shakeup. And the betting lines kind of made some people think that it was going to end up being this way. You said it, but you also didn't have the nads to like predict it.
Yeah, you told me not to.
You backed out. You know, was I holding a freaking chainsaw up to your head?
I mean,
no, I wasn't. You do what you want. I don't control you. Anaheim, with the second overall pick, selected Leo Carlsson, leaving Adam Fantilli out of the University of Michigan for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think we both like Leo Carlsson a lot. Watch him in World Juniors, was outstanding for Sweden. He could very well be an NHL star. Maybe Anaheim will look smart, because I remember shitting on Columbus for taking Pierre-Luc Dubois over Jesse Puljujarvi, because Jesse Puljujarvi was supposed to be the third pick. It was Matthews and Line A. That was a lock. And then the third overall pick was supposed to be Puljujarvi. And, you know, Finnish player to the Finnish GM in Columbus. Nope. He went with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Significantly better player all these years later than Puljujarvi. So maybe it's one of those types of situations. Those things do happen. Right now, though, I don't see it. Adam Fantilli falling to Columbus seems like a win for them.
Skoke says, I'm so pissed at the Ducks for doing that, and now Fantilli will be a major problem for the Hawks down the line. But, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, we talked about it last week. The odds movement was a little fishy, and that's not the first time odds movement has predicted things. A few years ago with Paulo Banchero going number one in the draft, the odds movement went in favor of him when it wasn't supposed to be him right away. So, I mean, that's something you really got to take into consideration when big moments like this come around. It's nothing against Adam Fantilli, but it appears that the Ducks like the type of player that Carlsson is. That's why they did it. The Ducks view Leo Carlsson as more of a two-way player, and that could mesh better with the type of team that the Ducks is building. I mean, that's probably something that went through their mind. I mean, they say Carlson's game's modeled after Evgeny Malkin and Anze Kopitar, two players that helped their team lift the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, the Ducks already have a lot of scoring capabilities with Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras. So maybe they felt that this was a piece they were missing. Someone with more of a two-way game. Maybe they thought the two-way game is better than Fantilli. But, I mean, on the other hand, the Columbus Blue Jackets get Fantilli, and he gets to go play with Johnny Gaudreau. And they wasted no time signing their future star. He already signed his 3-year entry-level deal. In most drafts, Fantilli would go one, but it was, you know, unfortunate that he was being drafted behind Connor Bedard. And, you know, there were questions surrounding on if he would go to Michigan or not, and that's not going to happen anymore. And something we mentioned last week was that the Blue Jackets might be one of the most improved teams, like the Devils were, not to that caliber, but up there as being a little bit more competitive this year. And Fantilli is going to definitely help that cause for sure. Because when we were making those comments, we really didn't predict Fantilli going to Columbus.
I agree with you. I think they have a top 3 farm system now because they locked into Fantilli, and that probably led to them taking their second round pick that we'll touch on in a little bit. Maybe they go in a different direction with that second round pick had Fantilli not fall into their lap, or maybe not. But I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made for that. I like what the Ducks have too. I think they have a top 10 farm system, and they have McTavish and Zegras and Drysdale. Like they're building something, you know, good too. But I'm like, man, they really passed up on Adam Fantilli. I just couldn't believe it. That's probably the most shocked I've ever been at a draft pick while watching sports in my life.
But you want to know something funny? Like, I feel like Fantilli fits the Blue Jackets more, like his attitude, than the Ducks. Like Trevor Zegras, nice guy. Adam Fantilli's kind of like a dick. He's got that like dickish
Got an edge
personality.
to him. He'll
He's
play
got an
well.
edge,
He'll play well with
edgy.
Hockey,
Well,
who's
that's what
also
I'm
kind of
saying.
like a dick.
Right. They're both edgy. He kind of fits in well more with the Blue Jackets. And maybe that's what Verbeek went through his head, right? Maybe he's like, hey, we want guys that'll kind of have chemistry together, kind of, get along like with the same type of personality. I don't know. Nobody really knows but him. I mean, he could tell you whatever, but I mean, whatever went through his head that night, we'll see it pan out. Everybody needs Adam Fantilli, right? Everybody wants to have an Adam Fantilli, but the Ducks don't need Adam Fantilli. I think they'll be just fine with Leo Carlsson, but we'll see what happens. Like, we'll see in a few years who made the better decision.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been told actually that Columbus was going to take Will Smith over Leo Carlsson if, Fantilli went to the Ducks as
Yeah.
planned. I do wonder because, like, what's the reason Anaheim passed on Fantilli? What do they know? And I get taken back to the 2018 draft, Frank. In 2018, the Detroit Red Wings did not at all expect Philip Zadina to get to them. He was supposed to go third to Montreal, and then Montreal passed on him, and then Arizona passed on him, and then holy shit, he's sitting there at 6 for frickin' the Red Wings, and they're like, we're gonna change our whole course. They were gonna take Quinn Hughes. He went to Michigan. It's perfect. He'll go play for the Red Wings. It'll be great. He won't have to move very far. It'll be awesome. And they deferred from that plan because Zadina was sitting for them. Now Quinn Hughes is the fastest defenseman to ever reach 200 career assists, and they are buying out Zadina as of today.
That's rough.
So you wonder, like,
that's rough.
Did Columbus make a mistake not taking Will Smith, like their plan A? Because Will Smith, which we're going to get to in a second here, only Jack Hughes has ever had more points with the United States National Development Program than Will Smith. I mean, just unreal the way drafts work out sometimes, and then you think about them down the line. There's something fishy is going to come from this draft in 3 or 4 years. We're going to look at someone as a major dummy, and we're going to look at someone as a major winner here.
I mean, you could be right. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the top 5 players that really went have a chance to be good.
Me too.
They're all going to be no, but like, I don't think there's going to be that much of a gap in between. I don't think it's going to be another one of those. I mean, it could, right? Like, we don't know what other teams know. Like I said, what's going through their head. But I think it'll all be relatively. If there is a difference, I don't think it's going to be a big difference.
100%. And Will Smith, he does go forth to San Jose. Going to play for Boston University next year. He's probably Logan Cooley's biggest threat for the Hobie Baker Award. Takes on him.
Man, it was hilarious. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air playing as he was walking up on stage. And, Emily
Talk about
Kaplan,
playing into a meme. Like,
oh, my God.
That's great.
And Emily Kaplan asked him about that, and he goes, well, it's my name. I'm going to play into it. I'm going to own it. He seems like a cool dude. He was a little embarrassed when Emily Kaplan asked him to sing the song. He didn't really sing it. He kind of said it. It's like, all right, come on. That was the only thing that kind of bothered me. It's like, have fun. You just got drafted to the NHL. But being that young, he's probably like, it's a little embarrassing. I'm on live television in front of millions of people. But anyway, he's going to be a top-line center for the Sharks one day. He's going to be a great two-way center. Going to be a threat on the power play. Not be surprised one bit if he gets to 90 or more points more than a few times in his career. I think this is going to be a great player for the Sharks and one that they could build around.
Absolutely. I think there's a chance this is going to sound crazy because, like, Bedard to me is the best player in the draft, and I don't foresee that not being the case. Like, even if Bedard is a serviceable NHL player and that's like the limit for him, he'll be a bust. Like, if he's a high-end second-line player, like, if he becomes Taylor Hall, he'll be a bust. When Taylor Hall's a great player, right? So I will say that. But I think there's a chance Will Smith ends up being the second best player in the draft or the third. He's that talented.
Yeah.
and he put up that many points with the development program. I didn't realize, like, I did a lot of research on the draft, but one player I kind of sniffed over was Will Smith, and damn, San Jose, they're getting a good one. Hopefully they surround him with some talent as the years go along. Their prospect pool is only going to continue to grow as they kind of tear it down a little bit over the next year or two. And listen, we talk college hockey a lot on this show. We'll be talking about Will Smith a lot once the season starts next year at Boston University. It's not Boston University. It's Boston College. I keep saying BU. Max Celebrini is going to go to Boston University. And he'll compete for the Hobie Baker too, but Will Smith will be at BC. BC BU games. Woo!
Be intense.
The Bean Pot's going to be awesome next year, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest winner of the draft, in my opinion, is the Philadelphia Flyers, who selected Matvei Michkov with the 7th overall pick. They're going to be dog shit during his entire KHL contract anyway. Let me explain it this way. Oh, he's got 3 years till he could come over. What if Carlson doesn't come over for 3 years? Will Smith, the Devils took Holtz 7th overall in 2020. In 2020, that was 3 drafts ago. He's not in the NHL yet. That happens all the time. Guys take 3 years to get to the league, so why not just play out your KHL contract, dump Michkov at 21 years old into your lineup? Then you probably have Max Celebrini or Cole Iserman, the kid who's supposed to go number 2 next year, and it's like all of a sudden the Flyers are like, whoa, we can compete in this Metropolitan Division. The Caps probably stink by then. The Penguins probably stink by then. The Devils and Hurricanes will probably still be somewhat near the top. The Rangers will probably be falling off a little bit. It'll be Columbus, Philly, and the Devils ready to run that division. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. I think they struck gold with Michkov.
Yeah, they were one of my 2 teams I saw taking them. I said Arizona or Philadelphia. They're lucky, though, the Flyers, that Michkov has a 3-year deal left on his his KHL contract, because if he didn't, he wouldn't have fell to the Flyers because he's that good. Probably would have went 2. And I think that's what makes people say, like, oh, we just got to wait 3 years for him, is because he's so talented right now that he would be playing in the NHL if his KHL deal was up. So I think that's why people are kind of like, man, do I not want to take him right now? Because, you also never know what happens in 3 years. And that's for anybody. That's for players going to college. I mean, injuries occur. And anyway, but what I'm trying to get at is, he's got a ton of talent. The Flyers don't have a player on their team like Michkov right now. Things are going to look a lot different when he's ready to come into the league and ready to contend with the Philadelphia Flyers. Probably, who knows, have a new coach. I believe in 3 years, that's the end of Torts' contract with the Flyers. So, I mean, things are going to be a lot different when he comes to the Flyers. So anything that is really taking place right now, like I said, it's going to be totally different when he comes in. But, I mean, it's a big risk that the Flyers took, but it also matches up with their timeline, and it could pay out huge. Big reward.
Absolutely. And then I picked 19. The Chicago Blackhawks took Oliver Moore.
Yeah.
Fastest player in the draft.
I'm so happy.
You nailed him as a possibility. I had him going 20 to Seattle, so I was 1 pick off, but he was definitely going right in that range. What's your take on Oliver Moore?
I mean, I'm so happy. I wanted him so bad. He is going to be like a Dylan Larkin. I think so. I think he's going to be right up there. He'll probably be the second line center one day. I mean, that's just Bedard at 1, Moore at 2. It's just unbelievable. Like, if those are your 2 top 6 centers, that's just amazing. I mean, he's so fast. The Hawks haven't really had a lot of luck with speed over their years. They had a lot of, especially as it went on, they got to their 2013, 2015 Cup. Their speed died down a lot. We had a lot of older guys, veterans on the team who were with the team a while. I haven't seen a lot of Hawks team with tremendous speed, and that's something that you need now in today's NHL. Some of the best players in the NHL thrive off their speed, and having a guy like Oliver Moore who has speed and talent, I'm looking forward to it. I truly don't think there was a better player available at that stage of the game. I think if the Hawks didn't take him, Seattle was taking him next. Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm very happy with the pick. I think he's going to be a tremendous player for the Blackhawks. And like I said, your 1-2 is Bedard and Moore. I mean, it really can't get any better than that right now.
100%. I mean, they also, They're trying to build it down the middle, which is not what they did in the Cup years.
Mhm.
They're like one of the rare teams that won multiple Cups, not going down the middle. Jonathan Taves was always 1C, but like, wasn't there 2C and 10 Troy Brower? And
Mhm.
then in 2013, it was Jesus. And then in 15, it was an older version of Brad Richards. So, like, they never really had like a stud 2C through any of those years. Oliver Moore might be somebody who can be that guy.
I hope so, because you know how they have like the grades, they grade players like for your draft, where they were drafted and how they give like a grade. You know what I'm trying to say, for each player in the draft. Well, obviously they gave Bedard an A+. They also gave Oliver Moore an A+ for that pick at that stage of the game. I mean, they put all the factors in where he was drafted, to what team. They gave him an A+ as well as Bedard. So I got high hopes for him.
Did you get that grade from DeWindyCity.com?
I don't know. I don't think so. It was a graphic that it wasn't an article I read. It was a picture. So unless the Windy City posted a picture of it.
No, I wrote trade grades and I gave both an A+.
No.
Or
Oh, really?
draft
No,
grades, I mean. I gave
I
both
didn't.
picks for the Hawks an A+ in the first round.
Yeah, I didn't read it. I saw a graphic pop up on Twitter and I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I've come to learn over the years that grades do well on the sports websites,
Mhm.
and I did a grade for each first round pick, and both of them got an A+ from me.
Good. So you agree?
Yeah, and I have a better time dissecting the Hawks more fairly than even the Devils, because the Hawks are a team I love, but it's easier for me to be harsher on them when I need to be. Where the
Mhm.
Devils, I always try to find a silver lining, even when I shouldn't be.
Mhm.
Um, the Hawks, they did very well in the first round. I love what they've done. Frank, and then we touched on this a little bit. Columbus, they landed Brindley in the second round. We all thought he'd go in the first round. He was taken with the second pick of the second round, pick number 34. Him and Fantilli were line mates at Michigan. Now there's a chance they'll be line mates in the NHL. Brindley will go back for another year. It'll be a while before they skate together in the NHL, because even when Brindley does come up, chances are he'll have to earn that spot on a line with Fantilli, but
This may be the steal of the draft, to be honest with you, because you're getting him in the second round. I mean, he's first round caliber talent, you could
which we
argue.
talked about happening.
Right. To some teams, he's first round caliber talent. Really, to every team, he should be. But the fact that the Blue Jackets were able to get him in the second round is a steal. Like, if the Predators or Capitals chose him, like early in the first round, that's not a steal. You're able to get a guy of his caliber in the second round after already drafting Adam Fantilli. I mean, it really can't get better than that. And you mentioned their line mates, or they were line mates in Michigan. They got the chemistry of playing together, and now they're going to bring that chemistry to the Blue Jackets. And the Blue Jackets already have a fairly deep prospect pool, and it just got deeper. I mean, it's a huge win for the Columbus Blue Jackets in the draft as well.
I would rank the Hawks 1 because they have Bedard, which means every team in the league would want their thing right now. Even if the rest of the guys are shit, they have Bedard. But the rest of the guys aren't shit, right? I haven't done my official post-draft prospect rankings for the Hawks yet, which I probably should do that soon because we're a week removed from the first round today. I actually might do that for tomorrow, considering it will be a week removed from the draft being complete. Bedard is 1. I saw Lucas Reichel second on a lot of people's. I'm high on Korchinski. I would put him second. Then I would put Lucas Reichel third. And I would put Oliver Moore fourth. And I would put Frank Nazar fifth. That's my top 5 Blackhawks prospects. I'd probably put Comesso sixth. Their top 10 farm is outstanding. I would rank them number 1, I think. But Columbus, they might be too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Columbus got a very good prospect pool. I mean, Fantilli fell into their lap, and then, like I said, they got a steal in the second round. Like, if you're Columbus, you're probably not thinking like he's going to be there with that pick.
Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely weren't.
So 2 players fell into their lap.
Yeah, exactly. Frank, there were no trades in the first round for the first time in multiple decades. Kind of annoy you a little bit? Kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm pretty sure they said this was the first time there were no trades since 2007, which would be nearing 2 decades, right? And you know where I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
That was the last time and the only other time that the Blackhawks had the number 1 pick in the draft, where they selected Patrick Kane. Leads me to believe that every time if the Hawks ever draft number 1 again, it's never for certain, but if they ever do, there will be no drafts or no trades in the draft. I mean, how crazy is that? But then on the flip side, you got to think with how much talent there is in this year's draft, it makes sense that there were no trades, right? However, I still thought something was going to happen. I mean, Kevin Weeks mentioned something before it, like, oh, I'm expecting some trades to go down during the draft. But I mean, how crazy is that?
It's freaking insane. Tom made me think, and I looked it up. Sharpie did not play center in 2010. He played left wing. 2C was probably John Madden, actually. But maybe they have a lot of guys listed as wings, though. I thought it was Brower. Maybe it was Sharp, and he's just listed as a left wing. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, that happens.
Taves is the only one on the team that was near the top of the team in scoring that was a center. Patrick Kane led the team in the 09-10 season. Kane led the team with 88 points. Duncan Keith was in second with 69 points. Nice. Taves was third with 68. To see a guy listed as a center, you'd have to go all the way down to number 11. John Madden had 23 points. So I'm sure some of those guys did actually. Bolin was definitely third or fourth line center. Most of these other guys probably didn't play all that much center. So yeah, that's probably true actually. But yeah, I agree with you. The trade situation, it was interesting, but you know,
so much talent though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said,
right?
Like who's gonna?
There were a couple teams who tried to trade up too. I heard, and they failed because
Philly, especially.
Yeah,
they're probably
Philly,
happy they didn't.
And it's just, but they actually, I think they mentioned they tried to trade up to get Mitchkov.
Yeah, they did,
and it failed, and they still got him. But that's just how hard it is to trade up. Like it's a very talented draft. So at the end of the day, I'm surprised there are no trades. But then you think about it, it's like, are you really?
Yeah. Next year's draft isn't this one, but it's still really good.
There will be trades next year during the draft.
For sure. Frank, who's your biggest winners and your biggest losers of the 2023 NHL draft?
My 4 winners, really, there's nothing else to say anything about them, so I'm not going to elaborate. Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, Flyers, and Sharks. We touched on it. Blue Jackets and Blackhawks, they had 2 of the best drafts this year. Flyers had Mitchkov fall into their lap. Absolutely. Gonna be what are you doing? Why are you shocked?
You named my 4.
Oh,
I didn't know you named the Sharks.
Well, they are.
Oh my God, good shit.
I mean, I got a brain.
Fair.
I mean, Will Smith is
Sometimes
great.
I forget that.
And I mean, yeah, they're huge winners here because he's going to be one of the best players. And like you said, maybe he will be the second best player in the draft. So I think they're big winners for that. Absolutely. The losers, however, I got 2 losers for you. That's the Montreal Canadiens and the Arizona Coyotes. Are those your 2? No way.
I swear to God, I was gonna also like, I was gonna give a nod to like there was another team that I thought had a stinky draft, but I wrote down 4 winners and 2 losers. I swear, that's unreal.
That is unreal. Well, the reason I chose the Canadiens is one of my losers is because, first of all, we didn't think any D-men were going to go in the first round, let alone be taken in the top 5. Reinbacher might be a great D-man, but with one of the most talented offensive drafts in the palm of your hands, it seemed like a wasted opportunity. Mitchkov was still available if they wanted him. It was just a huge loss for them. Not only that, but like the Coyotes did the same thing. Simashev being taken at 6 seemed like a stretch. I mean, he was even surprised that he was taken that early, which is bad when the guy you're drafting is stunned that he was taken that early. I mean, Daniil Butt, what did he go? He went
12.
12? Yeah, he went 12. I mean, that's a pretty decent player to get at 12. But there were plenty of other players that were great that were still available. Zach Benson, Matthew Wood, Oliver Moore. Just seemed like they could have done better. And I think they just shit the bed.
Absolutely. I agree. And the other team I was thinking of was Nashville. I think Nashville, I thought they could have did better at being like the hometown team. I thought they would make a trade or do something huge. So I kind of listed them as a loser, even though they're not necessarily a loser in the way that Montreal and Arizona are. And then I did want to touch on Buffalo too. I thought Buffalo landing Zach Benson. He was kind of my draft crush. I thought he'd go top 10. And Buffalo ended up getting him at 13, which like the Coyotes took Butt over. Which
I would have taken Benson over Butt.
yeah, it's
Seriously.
pronounced Boot, but we're gonna continue to say Butt because it's funny. But yeah, Benson, he was in my top 5. I had him going 5 to Montreal. So I like Axel Sandin Pellikka for Detroit. I wouldn't consider them a winner of the draft by any means. But when you touch on the Sharks, I was also going to bring up they got Quentin Musty, our guy, Tom's guy. They got Musty at 26 with the pick the Devils gave them for Timo Meyer.
Forgot about that.
So, just really good draft for all those guys, all those teams. Do you have a favorite unmentioned draft story?
I think I kind of had to figure out what you meant by that, but David Reinbacher, it's probably Bacher, David Reinbacher. He became the first Austrian-born defenseman ever to be selected in the first round. Let that sink in. He was chosen at number 5. He became the first Austrian-born defenseman ever to be selected in the first round. How many there's not a ton. There's not a ton, but there's a couple notable ones if you look.
Vanek was a first round pick.
No,
I know. I'm just saying, that's so impressive. Wow.
And it's just like I get it's not like this crazy story, but like the game of hockey is growing. There's Austrian players that are going to come be good. I mean, we're going to see more countries produce top level NHL athletes, and Reinbacher being the first ever Austrian-born defenseman to be drafted in the first round just kind of blew my mind, because you figure here or there's going to be an Austrian defenseman come into the league and be like top notch, let alone taken in the top 5. Even though if I were the Canadians, I wouldn't have had him going 5. And then Carey Price botched his name, which was kind of embarrassing. It was like
kind of annoyed me.
But how do you not know who you're drafting?
Yeah.
For one, it's got to be an embarrassment for Carey Price. He seemed like he was a little like, oh, I can't believe I messed it up. And for the kid, it's like, seriously, one of the greatest goalies of all time just botched my name. That's got to make me feel good.
And the biggest moment of my life, probably.
Yeah. But then again, he'll never forget the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the extra wrinkle to laugh on too. But I mean, yeah. The story I was going to bring up, you were right. The Hawks took a goalie. I was stunned. They were the first team to take a goalie. And they took, what's his name? I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Gajan? I don't know how to pronounce it. He was the goalie. He was the goalie for Slovakia in the World Juniors, and one of Connor Bedard's most famous goals that he scored in his draft year was against him, which I think is hilarious. Now they're teammates. But hey, the Hawks, they're one of those teams right now that are stocking goalies.
What did I know? Tell you? The streak was coming to an end, though I heard the whispers.
Each of our teams ended a goalie streak this year. The Devils drafted one every year since 2014, and they didn't this year.
Guyon. Thanks for the phonetic spelling, Skokes.
Absolutely.
Guyon.
It's not the first time Skokes has corrected us on how to say things, including his own nickname. But yeah. And you know what's funny? Skokes, that doesn't even come to my mind anymore.
No,
it's naturally Skokes now.
Me either.
Love Skokes. Hope to see you at a Bears training camp this year. We'll sit together and break down some football. But yeah, that's it on the draft. It was a fun time. Hell yeah, man. Teams trying to get better, making dreams come true. That's what it's all about. We have a lot to get to in terms of free agency in period number 3. Frank, we're just going to roll through them. You're going to tell me whether or not there's a lot. We're probably not even going to get to them all.
That's fine.
The ones I have written down are the ones I'm doing.
You say, I'll talk about it.
Yep. Do a quick reaction. I'll throw in a comment or two here and there. All right. Matt Duchene was bought out by the Nashville Predators. They're going to have that cap hit for the next couple years. I think it's half of what their salary was. So it's $4 million for Duchene. He signs with the Dallas Stars. Your thoughts?
Yep. $3 million for 1 year for the Dallas Stars. I could see Duchene playing on the third line with possibly Tyler Seguin, maybe having a 20-goal scorer. If he could get 20 plus goals on your third line, that's highly dangerous, especially with the team that is in contention to win the cup. That's a huge win for the Dallas Stars, in my opinion.
I think the Stars are one of the best teams in the NHL. I think they're certainly one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Duchesne is a better. He's a
Huge,
upgrade. He's an
huge
upgrade over
win.
Max Domi. Love Max Domi, but he's an upgrade
Yeah.
over Max Domi. Stars fans are going to love him. Can't wait to watch him play.
Absolutely.
He might even find himself higher than the third line. I understand like optically it would look great to have him on the third line, and that's what I hope they do because that'll create
Mhm.
the most depth for them.
Absolutely, and they, they're great player
Yeah,
too.
for sure, absolutely. Off year last year, but the year before he was insane, and I think he'll get
And-
back to being insane.
And that's
this
what I'm
year.
saying. If he could get to 20 goals again, that's a great asset to have on your team.
100%. Klingberg, Reeves, Bertuzzi, and Domi all go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's as stacked as this team has been in the Austin Matthews era. And I know
Yeah,
we say that every year, but
I was going to say we say it every year, but I didn't necessarily see Toronto making all these moves. In all honesty, I thought changes had to be made, but this is way more than I expected. And I know you talked about the odds of winning the cup. When I checked last night, the Leafs had the second best odds. I guess it all depends on whatever book you're looking
isn't that
at.
what I said?
No, you said they weren't even in the top three.
No, I
You
said
said Colorado and
the Leafs.
no, I swear it wasn't the Leafs.
Oh,
'Cause
I meant the Leafs.
Yeah, so they
DraftKings,
well,
I think the Leafs were one.
the Devils were actually tied with Toronto when I looked for the second
Oh,
best.
oh. And it changed even since then. They were tied with
but-
Carolina when I looked for third.
Yeah, I don't. But anyway, I mean, they're the second best odds to win the cup, and why I do think winning the cup, winning the cup takes more than just having a good group of players. This offseason's been a major win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're filling roles for each type of player. They get the gritty Reeves. They get a great defenseman. They get Domi and Bertuzzi, two guys who could contribute to scoring. I mean, they're literally filling in pieces for every aspect of a team.
Would you pick the Leafs to win a playoff series?
Depends who they play. Right now, maybe the curse is over, but
The
it
curse
depends
is
who
over?
they play. But
Okay.
it depends who they play.
Do you have a second round curse now, or if they win
I-
one round, they can win four?
We'll see. I still think it's a mindset thing too. I don't necessarily. They wouldn't be my pick to win the cup this year.
No, I actually hate the Klingberg signing, and I hate the Reeves signing. I love the Bertuzzi and Domi signing because you know what's going to happen? Someone's going to hit Nylander in the playoffs or Marner, and they're just going to pan to Reeves on the bench doing nothing about it. That's what's going to happen for him. And then Klingberg, he'll run a power play. He'll help Austin Matthews get back into the high 50s for goals again on the power play. And he is the worst defensive defenseman I have ever seen in my entire life. That's why the second the Dallas Stars struck gold with Miro Heiskanen, they're like, okay, Klingberg, go get $7 million somewhere else because you have 50 points, 40 of them are on the power play. And he's basically Eric Gustafsson. And Eric Gustafsson was better defensively with Washington this last season than Klingberg. Yeah. He was. There's no doubt about it. I don't hate Klingberg. I'm sure he's a wonderful human being. I hate Klingberg's game. I wouldn't want the Devils to go near him with a 50-foot pole. I don't care if he has 100 points.
Well, breaking news, Devils signing him next offseason.
Yeah, but then he'll be on the same team as Jack, so he'll probably be sick. If I was the Leafs don't have a Marino or a freaking Dougie Hamilton though. Like maybe a guy who's solid defensively. He's going to have to play with like a shutdown defenseman.
Maybe they're going to make more moves.
Yeah, I have no idea. And Reeves, I don't think the Leafs need a guy like Reeves, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. I do think the Leafs, though, their top 9 with Bertuzzi and Domi, it's right there with the Devils for the best in the NHL.
Yeah.
They're over the cap, though. They're one of 2 teams over the cap. So will they trade Nylander? Will they trade Marner? That would be a big blow.
I feel like with all these moves, though, they don't want to. They got these players to help Marner and Matthews.
I know. I know.
But
I used to not think Matthews was going to sign long-term either. Now I kind of think he will. Like soon, before the offseason's over. Like an 8-year deal.
Should be. And I'm excited to see what happens when we get the breaking news.
Absolutely. Yamamoto went to Seattle.
Yep.
Thoughts?
1 year, $1.5 million. He's from Washington. He gets to play for his home state. A couple of years ago, he had 20 goals. Last season, he only had 10 goals. This feels like the right place for Yamamoto, though. I mean, we see players come to expansion teams all the time with that new life sensation and end up having breakout years. Plus, he might have more fuel in his fire because he's playing for the state he grew up in. I don't know. I think it's a pretty okay deal for the Kraken.
Love the
Fine.
deal for the Kraken. He's an upgrade over Donato. And I think he'll probably play. If he's not playing with Ben Years, maybe he'll play with Shane Wright. Like, I do think Shane Wright makes the Kraken this year and plays every game with them if he's healthy. I don't know. I like the move for Seattle. It's a nice little
Yeah,
depth
I mean,
piece
it's not
for them.
bad, for sure.
This is probably my favorite move of the offseason, like for that team, like a underrated move that nobody's going to talk about, but you'll see how much it pays dividends for them and once the season starts. And that's Rodriguez to Florida.
4 years, 12 million, 3 average per year. You know, he was used to signing so many 1-year contracts, and he said that signing a longer term contract made him feel great, and it kind of improved his confidence. When a team believes in you, he said it feels good. And, you know, when he played with Pittsburgh and Sidney Crosby, he ended up getting a career high 19 goals. Who knows what he'll be doing alongside Barkov or even Sam Bennett, right? This team got to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. They were the President Trophy winners the year before. I don't think that they're going to repeat necessarily all that, but Evan Rodriguez definitely helps that cause.
Absolutely. I think their top 9 just got better. I would try him on every line. He seems like he could play every line. I'm excited for Florida. I do think they're a playoff team as of right now. I reserve the right to change that based on moves as the offseason goes along, but I'd be surprised if the Stanley Cup runner-ups upgrading to Rodriguez would not make them a better team, and thus maybe next year's not as much of a struggle in the first half of the season. I know I said Yamamoto was an upgrade over Donato, but that doesn't mean Ryan Donato won't be a great fourth line center and or winger for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. Your thoughts?
Yeah, earlier in the second period, I talked about how I think he's going to center the line with Foligno and Perry. If I had to guess, that's just my, that's just what I'm kind of thinking in my head. So this is a guy that's not going to fill up the score sheet, but is capable of being a great double-digit goal scorer, maybe on the third or fourth line. I think this move is going to make a major impact on the team. Even when he's not collecting points, I think he's going to impact the Hawks many other ways. So, former Bruin. So I'm excited to have him on the team.
Absolutely. Former Bruin and former Wild. He was traded for Charlie Coyle, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Gostisbehere and Comfort to Detroit. They're probably going to trade for Alex DeBrincat later this week or, sometime during the offseason. What do you think about Gostisbehere and Comfort to Detroit as they look to bulk up this year?
Yeah, I mean, the scouts did not expect Ghost to be like how he is now. They thought he'd be a little bit better. However, on Detroit, Ghost going to be brought in to try and contribute on their power play a little bit. If he could get 10 goals and more than 40 points, that's a win for the Red Wings. He offers more offense than defense, so you're definitely going to see that out of Shane Gostisbehere. As far as JT Compher goes, he had a career best 52 points last year with the Avalanche and now comes to Detroit on a 5-year, $25.5 million deal. Compher decided to come to the Red Wings because he loves Steve Yzerman. He loves what Steve Yzerman's trying to build here, and he's going to be reunited with his Michigan teammates in Larkin and Kopp from back in 2014. Those were 2 big selling points for him. I think that's going to pan out very well for him, hence the 5-year deal. We shall see. If they do end up getting DeBrincat, something else we mentioned last week is the Red Wings are one of the teams I thought he might be willing to go because he's from Michigan. And if that happens, then these 2 players, along with DeBrincat and the rest of the core team, it's going to be a pretty good team.
I think so too. A lot of Nashville's moves before our last show suggested that they were going to start a rebuild, and really that's not true. They're just
They're liars.
They were liars. They're trying to build down the middle a lot more. A lot of their focus was on the wing and on defense before last week. Well, Barry Trotz clearly believes in building down the middle. You think of some of his old teams in the past, as a coach, when he was with Washington, it was all about Evgeny Kuznetsov and Nicholas Backstrom down the middle. Ovechkin's going to pump out 50 goals, but, the 50-goal scoring winger isn't going to help you win in the playoffs. The 2 centermen down the middle playing on both ends of the ice, feeding that 50-goal scoring winger, that's the key to winning in the playoffs. And I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. It was Nashville that Barry Trotz coached before the Capitals, but he's clearly putting an emphasis on center, and it'll be interesting to see. What do you think of the moves Nashville has made so far?
Ryan O'Reilly signed a 4-year contract. Luke Shen signed a 3-year contract. I mean, you look at, you were very high up on the Predators last year. They kind of had a letdown year in many eyes around the NHL, and the Predators are going to be hopeful that O'Reilly and Shen and other players that they bring in are going to, turn this around for them because they don't want to go through the rebuild. If O'Reilly could get back to being a 20 goal scorer again, which who knows, maybe not. I don't know if I see it with the Preds. Maybe that's going to be a big win for them. But I mean, they're trying to not rebuild because of their. I think they know what their expectations were last year, and they think that they could get there again without having to fully rebuild. So I think that's what they're trying to do here. We'll see if it works out.
And what do you make of the moves that the Pittsburgh Penguins have made so far this offseason?
Could you roll through some of them in my head because I'm like drawing a blank.
Here, let me pull up Cap Friendly so I can see exactly what players they signed. I know they signed a bunch, and I remember thinking when I saw it that.
I know they made a lot of moves, but I just forgot a whole bunch.
But I'm looking at the moves that they've made, and I'm like, this really doesn't match what I thought Pittsburgh was going to do this offseason. So, like, Nola Chari's going over to Pittsburgh, which is obviously, something that's big. Alex Nedeljkovic, they're bringing him in as a goaltender, and they signed Tristan Jarry long term. And then, of course, the biggest move that they made, in my opinion, is the Ryan Graves contract. They got Ryan Graves from the New Jersey Devils after he had a pretty significant good season with them this last season. So Nola Chari, they signed Lars Eller as well, the Stanley Cup champion with the Washington Capitals. So Eller, Achari, Graves, and Nedeljkovic, that's some significant signings. The Penguins are not... They're not rebuilding while Sidney Crosby's there.
I was just gonna say they don't want to have to go through rebuilding with the core. Not only Sidney Crosby, but Malkin Letang. They want to try and win again before tearing it down. Maybe this is a last-ditch effort, right? They're getting older. We don't know how long they have left with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nedeljkovic coming in and backing up Jarry, that's not bad. I mean, Nedeljkovic, to me, is a little shaky from what I've seen. Don't necessarily trust him, but he's going to be your backup. But if things go wrong with Jarry, I don't know if you're going to be able to lead on Nedeljkovic as you may, other backups in the league. But, who knows how that'll work out. But it's clear that they're trying to contend. The moves that they made were pretty big. So, obviously, them missing the postseason last year kind of fueled their fire. They want to get back there, and maybe these moves will help them do so.
100%. And I kind of respect what they're doing. Like, their farm system shit. Like, their farm system is just complete dog shit. They know, hey, we just got to spend money and try and go for it while we have this core intact. And then it's probably going to take 5 years for the Penguins to get back into contention once Crosby's gone and Malkin's gone, Letang. I really don't see them being good for a very long time, but I think they have 2 or 3 more years of really trying to go for this thing. And
you think that long, huh?
Like, of them being good?
No, like, you think, like, because they could be traded too. You don't think they're going to be traded? Do you think they just play it out?
In the final year of their contracts, it's possible, which Sid isn't entering his final year of the contract. I wrote a tweet about the Bruins acquiring Crosby. I didn't hear anything. This is just strictly like, Crosby trying to get a last-ditch effort to win the cup. Like, if the Penguins are way out of it and the Bruins are running Charlie Coyle as their number 1 center next season, like, could they bring in Sid? Like, the Bruins are probably hanging on to a wild card spot regardless. I don't know. I just don't see the Penguins ever trading Crosby though. I mean, the Hawks traded Kane, but
I didn't think that about Kane.
Kane's not Crosby.
Yeah, I know, but it's still to me that doesn't matter. I still think if Kane was traded for he was an iconic player for the Hawks, and I think the same could be said with Crosby. I mean, no one's untradeable. We say that all the time. Hello.
Can you hear me, Frank?
I think we lost Vinny. Hello?
I think I'm here. Am I here?
You were here for a second. You're here now, but I didn't hear you for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. And it's also, I think it's raining outside. But my Wi-Fi likes to disconnect and connect to the extender, and then that messes things up. I don't know why it does that to me. I'm going to figure out a way to forget that thing so that doesn't happen to me anymore. But yeah, I don't... the Penguins trade Crosby, that would be huge, but clearly that's not going to happen for a while here. Once they are done, whether it's this year, next year, the year after that, they are going to suck. Like Devils bad for the decade. They have no farm system.
50 points, 55 points.
I think they have the 32nd best farm system.
So you think they're going to be like old Buffalo days or like 58-point seasons? And
yeah, which they'll get another generational player in 10 years because they'll be that bad. Like the Penguins have it all figured out, actually. You suck for a little bit, wait for that generational player, maybe get lucky with Malkin, and then boom. Because they won the Crosby lottery, which was held after a season that didn't exist. So I'm pretty sure every team had the same odds, and they got Crosby.
Great,
So.
Good for them.
Miles Wood to Colorado, weird contract.
I don't know how many years he signed.
6
years at how much per year?
2 something.
Yeah, I mean 6 years is a lot. I mean he got
It's
the right
term.
amount of money.
Yeah, it's
he
the
got
term.
the right. Yeah, it's the term. He got the right amount of money, and he's like a 20-point player. I think he's got like 30 points once in his career, a little more than 30 points once in his career. But I mean the Colorado Avalanche, man, they're trying to be good. They are very good. Miles Wood will add some bottom 6 depth to their team. I mean, what is your takeaway? I mean, he was an ex-Devil, so
he had speed. His hands are brick walls. I've never seen a guy miss breakaways more. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Michael Grabner a little bit.
Really?
But Michael Grabner put together like a heavy goal scoring season a couple times. Miles Wood, his hands are literally like I think I have better hands. I do. I honestly think that. His hands, I've never seen a guy get a breakaway and miss the net more. When you're on a breakaway, you better not miss the net. You have no defenders on you. You have to hit the net. And there are times where when he does hit the net, he literally just shoots it into the logo. I honestly was starting to believe for a while that he aimed for the logo. And I'm like, there's no way. And he'll score 10 goals. I think he had a 19 goal season once, which is nice. But I mean,
Miles Wood had 19 goals.
Yeah, Miles Wood had a 19 goal season.
Probably the year he got 32 points.
It was most of his points are always goals. He doesn't drive offense. He gets on breakaways, he kills penalties. It was the year they made the playoffs. He had 19 goals. The year with Hall, the MVP year.
Yeah.
So he'll add depth to the Colorado Avalanche,
Absolutely.
but he's physical, big, mean guy. 6 years is a lot for a guy who has brick hands. But he always worked hard for the Devils. I do give him that. He was always a soldier. They weren't good for most of his time there, so I wish him well in Colorado. James Franco, his twin, Miles Wood.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh yeah. What do you think of the Bruins moves?
See, Joey was over on July 1st, and he was rattling the Bruins moves. I don't remember most of them either. You might have to refresh my memory. I do know Milan Lucic is back with the Bruins. I forgot the other ones.
Yep, they got Morgan Geekie.
Geekie,
that always a really fun name.
Yeah. And he's a great player.
Yeah, Morgan Geekie's awesome.
I was hoping the Hawks were gonna pick him up or something, but
they got James Van Hockey.
That's right. Yep, it's all coming back to me.
Patrick Brown. They signed Jason Magna, but I'm not sure if he'll play in the NHL very much. I remember when he was with the Penguins. And they signed Kevin Shattenkirk. So they have Shattenkirk, Van Riemsdyk, Van Hockey.
Now I remember.
Lucic and Geekie. We'll see what happens with Bergeron and Krejci. But I do think the Bruins they'll be good next year.
They're trying everything, man. It's like a last-ditch effort. Like, we don't want to go through a rebuild. We're going to sign some of these older type guys. And Geekie's actually a good pickup for them. Younger side, obviously, and he's gonna make an impact on this Bruins team. Shattenkirk, obviously, the Shattenkirk and JVR. I mean, it's not the JVR of the past, obviously, but it just seems like they're grasping here. Like, they're so close to tearing it down. They're right there. I truly believe that. Maybe not tearing it down and getting rid of Pasta and Marchand and all that, but they're very, very close to being middle of the pack to bottom tier bubble team style is what I think, truly. Maybe not this year, but they're close.
I think people going into the season, they'll underrate Brad Marchand. He could have 100 points. Pasternak had 60 goals. He's 25. McAvoy is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. I really like Carlo. I really like Grzelcyk. I mean, their defense is good. They have 2 good goaltenders, the Vezina Trophy winner. I'm not sure both of them will be on the roster by the start of the season, but they'll have one good goalie. I just don't think the Bruins are going to be like
I don't think they're gonna
bad.
be awful, but they're
I got
close.
them. I got them top 3 in the Atlantic Division.
That's fair.
It's hard though. McAvoy's 25 and Pasternak is 27. So how do you rebuild with two? Pasternak's a top 5 winger, and McAvoy's a top 5 defenseman. How do you rebuild when you have those two guys on your roster? It's going to be hard.
It's gonna be hard, but they might have to. Their farm system stinks.
I know it stinks, but it's not like waiting for Crosby and Malkin to be done. Those guys are in their late 30s. McAvoy and Pasternak, in a way, they're kind of just getting started.
Yeah.
So
You
like
could rebuild on the fly and not completely tear everything down.
and that's kind of what I think they're doing this season. Like, they got Jake DeBrusk overtime. They traded for Taylor Hall. Like, there are ways to, this year might be like a retool year, and they still make the playoffs, but not necessarily be considered a cup favorite. But then in 2 years from now, with McAvoy and Pasternak leading the way, if the Bruins were like really good again, I really wouldn't be all that surprised. But they would need a little bit of luck, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody could use a little bit of luck.
What about Leon Draisaitl for the Bruins?
Do you think
After
he'll be traded
next
to the
year.
Bru-
No, he's a free. He's going to lead his free agent class.
I don't think he's gonna. Do you think he's gonna sign with a different team?
It's possible. I mean,
I don't see
guys
it.
do.
I don't see it. I don't think. I think he's stuck with the Oilers. I think he's gonna re-sign there.
Maybe. But that.
How do you want to leave McDavid?
No, it's that. Yeah, I mean, let me look at the year. I think
How do you want to leave?
There's that big draft class where
Come to the Hawks. Play with Bedard.
Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Well, Draisaitl's incredible. Yeah, he's got 2. So at the 2025 summer, as of right now, this free agent class sucked. Bertuzzi might have legitimately, or Domi. I guess Patrick Kane, but Patrick Kane isn't the same Patrick Kane with his hip injury. He might prove us all wrong, but right now he was like the 5th best forward available. Bertuzzi and Domi like led the class this year. 2025 summer, Matthews and Draisaitl.
One of them's coming to the Hawks.
We'll see.
That would be insane. Like,
It
why
would be
not?
insane.
Draisaitl want to test the waters with different Connors. No more Connor McDavid. Come to Connor Bedard.
Yep. Absolutely. Talbot to the Kings.
Yeah,
I like the move personally.
I do too. I mean, Cam Talbot played for Todd McCullough when he was on Edmonton in 2017. He feels very comfortable playing with Todd McCullough under his system. The LA Kings are at a point where they're trying to win, and so is Talbot. And with Korpisalo gone, Copley and Talbot will be the duo in net for the Kings. I mean, things could get a little scary. I don't know if I necessarily buy into the duo, but I don't hate the idea of adding Talbot to this Kings team.
It's their weak point for sure.
Absolutely.
It's not a weak point like the Devils' weak point though, where like in the regular season, I trust Vanacek and Schmid to do just fine.
I see a little regression from the Los Angeles Kings this year.
For sure. I kind of agree because I think the Ducks will be better. They have Pierre-Luc Dubois though.
They do.
It'll be a nice duo with him and Kopitar down the middle, but Doughty's not the same. I kind of agree with you. And their top 5 picks haven't panned out. Nobody wants to admit it, but Byfield hasn't lived up to being the 2nd overall pick, and Turcotte hasn't lived up to being the 5th overall pick. So, and other guys have. Kayev. They have a lot of young players that really developed nicely, but it's kind of like the Rangers. The Rangers were really good at drafting outside of the top 10, but then once it came to having the 1st pick and the 2nd pick, they didn't do a good job drafting Lafreniere and Kakko, and it's kind of the same thing going on with the Kings. The Rangers would be Stanley Cup contenders if Lafreniere and Kakko lived up to expectations. I feel the same way about the Kings with Turcotte and Byfield.
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
You might be stunned. I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs.
I wouldn't either. Edmonton, Vegas, the Kraken. And then the Central could pump out 5 playoff teams.
Maybe the Preds are better. You never know.
Maybe the Preds are better. Maybe the Jets find a way to, if they keep Hellebuck. As of right now, they still have Hellebuck and Scheifele.
Maybe the Hawks slip in as an 8 seed.
No shot.
Not
with Peter. Not with Millimeter Peter in the net.
Never know.
That bottom six you named, Frank, I hate it. I vehemently hate it.
Really?
I like what they're doing in the top six. I like what they're building. They're going to give up a lot of goals next year. They'll be fun. They'll be fun as hell to watch.
We'll see. You never know. Never know.
I'm secretly hoping for 100 points for Bedard in a bad season overall. Max Celebrini, man, go for the rebuild the right way. Like you already see, I was right about.
I was miserable this season.
Next year you're not going to be miserable.
Well,
And next year there would be a lot of luck involved with the lottery. I think they would need to win it as like the 6th worst team or 7th worst team.
I really don't want them to be that bad again, like that bad last year. They're not going to be as bad as they were this year.
No, they're not. They're not. They'll have 6% odds of winning the lottery. That's like my guess. They'll be like the 8th worst team. They'll be what the Coyotes were this year. Where you can't count on them to win, but they'll beat the Bruins twice, like the Coyotes did. Like the Coyotes had like fun stretches, and Clayton Keller had 80 points. That's my comparable for next year in terms of my early summer prediction for the Hawks next year. Right out of LA, though, Jonathan Quick. He won the Stanley Cup with Vegas, even though he wasn't playing. He goes to the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers are actually probably going to use him as Igor Shesterkin's backup.
Yeah, he will.
Replacing Yaroslav Halak.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, it's only a 1-year deal, $850K. So, I mean, it's fine. Man, I used to love Quick, and I'm kind of out on him now. I mean, he had his good stretch with Vegas. He was fairly decent there. It should be interesting how the Rangers utilize him. But I actually don't see this panning out for the Rangers in a good way. So
I agree.
I think he's going to be a lot less reliable on the Rangers.
I say he's cut by Christmas.
That's fair.
And they find a different backup.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that. I think it's going to actually be a snowball effect. I think it's a terrible move by the Rangers, to be honest with you.
He grew up a Rangers fan, and he beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final. So it's a nice little send-off for Jonathan Quick in his career. But I'm a little surprised that a team like the Rangers, who have the best goalie in the world, to pull this out of their hat as the backup.
I would have rather Halak, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What about unsigned players? Taves, Kane? Anybody else on your radar?
I still think Taves is going to retire. I don't think anybody's going to pick him up. I think the end of his career is near. And as far as Kane goes, he said he's not going to sign until after his surgery is complete and he's recovered. So sources say that could take up to 5 months. I mean, maybe even by the trade deadline, he's ready to sign with the team. I know for a fact he's not going to be signed before the start of the season. I think he's made that very clear. What if this is a master manipulating plan by Patrick Kane? The Hawks end up being a bubble team. At the trade deadline, he wants to help them get back into the playoffs, and he's just waiting to sign that contract.
I think that would be a shit move by the Hawks. They're smarter than that.
I love it for old time's sake.
Kyle Davidson is smarter than that. He's got my line of thinking. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
I know. That's what I'm scared about.
No. See you later to the past. Let's develop Bedard. You don't need. I agree with everything he said about comparing. But if you're going to bring in Taylor Hall and Corey Perry and Nick Foligno, why not just keep Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane? You think it's the same thing in the room? You think Connor Bedard's going to be able to grow into a leader if Taves and Kane are there compared to Perry and Foligno? Perry and Foligno, great players. Perry won a Hart Trophy, so did Hall. But, I mean, no, it's just not the same thing. Franchise icons being in the room would change Bedard's attitude entirely.
Taves is one of the best leaders of all in NHL history.
I know that. I think he's the best leader.
Yeah, right. So I get what you're saying.
I just don't think it wouldn't be an easy transition for Bedard to take over as the leader if Taves was still there.
See.
So, I don't know. Onward and upward, Kyle Davidson. Onward and upward. Let Patrick Kane and his offensive efficiency with terrible defensive efficiency go play in Colorado, where he'll be on the same ice as Cale Makar basically every single time.
All I'm saying is if there is a chance that they were a bubble team come trade deadline, I wouldn't be shocked if he signed with the Hawks.
Yeah, I don't
see him coming back. Let's make that clear.
No, I know.
I think there's a chance. There's always a chance if something like that were to happen.
We disagree on his timeline, though. He signs when he's ready to play. He's not waiting till the trade deadline. If he's ready to play in November, right around his birthday there, in mid-November, he signs with a team.
I think there's 0% chance he signs by the end of 2023.
You have to sign by December 1st to play in the season.
Then I think that's when I didn't know that. Well, then I think he'll sign like the day before December 1st. Whatever the last day is, I don't think he'll. I think he's waiting a long time.
We'll see. I'm going to go out on a limb. I say he signed before August is over.
That's insane.
Yeah, he's going to want some.
Because they literally said he's not going to sign.
I know, but the way all the insiders talk about like free agents and who's still available, it makes it seem like talks with Patrick Kane are like active. That's what I get out of it. But I understand what you're saying. He did say that about being recovered. I also
sure Elliot Friedman said that.
Well, I
trust him.
No, I know. I trust Elliot Friedman more than anyone, I think. I have Elliot Friedman's notifications on my phone. Like they pop up on my phone as if someone texted me. Me and Elliot are tight. But I saw videos of Patrick Kane already shooting and practicing his skating. Like if somebody's going to be ahead of schedule on that, it's going to be number 88. But Tarasenko thought he was going to sign with Carolina. That ended up falling under the cracks. And then today it came out that he fired his agent and he's going to sign with a team probably soon.
Tarasenko?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we shall see. There were early rumblings I don't think it's going to happen that he may be coming to the Hawks. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. If it was going to happen, I think it would have happened July 1st.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I agree with you. I also think at 30, whatever, that's not the team for him. He's probably trying to win again.
Yeah.
He knows what it's like to win the Stanley Cup. So I would love for the Devils to get him. I know it's like they're running out of cap space, but they can afford him at $4 million, $5 million. And then you would have Meyer, Heischer, Toffoli, Bratt, Hughes, or no, excuse me. Who am I missing? Yeah, Bratt, Hughes, Tarasenko, and then the third line would be Palat, Halla, Mercer. Oh my God, give me the cup now. So that's what I'm hoping for. Tarasenko.
We'll see.
Let's get it done, Devils. Get Tarasenko.
Never know.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. Frank, I think after all this talk about free agency and the draft and our conversation with Dan that ended over an hour ago, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to talk about America's favorite podcast segment of the week. Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Where's my money?
VP.
Wait, really quick. I just watched an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah. Did it mess with your mind a little bit?
It completely messes with my mind. I've watched like 4 of them now. The most recent one I watched, though, had Mr. Aaron Paul himself as the main character of the episode. He says, "Where's my money, bitch?" at the end of our little clip here. Uh-huh. That's Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul. Really, really good job in that episode, too. Really good job.
I forgot what episode I watched of Black Mirror, but it really I've never felt that way after watching an episode of a TV show. You probably haven't seen it.
I've only watched episodes from the most recent season.
Yeah. So
I was told you could watch any order you want.
Yeah, you can. Any order, any episode. Yeah. But anyway, last week we swept the board for the second week in a row. We haven't lost a Breaking Bets pick since June 21st. We're up to 14-9 in the MLB. We're climbing. We're thriving. Now's the time to hop on the bandwagon if you're going to follow some picks. The streak probably ends today because it's hard to continue going perfect. But we've hit our last 4 picks, I think, on Breaking Bets. Got another 3 today. If we could go for 7 for 7 over the course of the past 3 weeks, that would be insane. We're going to start off in Tampa Bay, where the Phillies are traveling into Tampa, or they're actually not traveling. They're already there, but their Phillies are in Tampa Bay. It's going to be Walker versus Littell. Rays lost yesterday to the Phillies. And this team doesn't lose a lot. They're on a 3-game losing streak. They don't lose a lot of home games. They got one of the best home records in the MLB. And right now, the Rays money line's -130. Walker pitching on the road. He's pitched better than he has at home than he has on the road. He's coming into this game, like I said, with the Rays on a losing streak. One of the best home records in the MLB, one of the best records in the MLB. It's hard to see the Rays dropping 2 in a row at home versus the Phillies. It's not too often you could jump on the Rays at this price at home. Rays are always pretty decent sized favorite at home. Rays money line -130. Got to take it. Great value at home here, especially coming off of a loss on a 3-game losing streak. Seems like the right thing to do. It's my first pick, Rays money line. Second pick also has to do with the Rays game, except this is a prop for the game. I like the under 2.5 home runs. Walker has only given up 1 home run in his past 5 starts, where he's averaged going about 6 innings per game. This will also be a bullpen day for the Rays, and I expect the Phillies rotation to see a lot of fresh arms and keep the home run counter down. I like under 2.5 home runs. See, there not being a lot of long balls in this one. And that's the price of that is -121. This brings me to our last game. It's between the Cincinnati Reds and the Washington Nationals. Graham Ashcraft versus Josiah Gray. Reds have taken the first 2 games in the series. Now it's time for the Nationals ace to take the mound and steal game 3 of the series. Lane Thomas been on a roll. He's been fantastic for the Nationals as of late. I think the whole lineup can get to Ashcraft early and carry out the momentum throughout the game. He's not had the best season. Gives up a lot of hits each game. Josiah Gray, on the other hand, this is a great price for the Nationals at home with their ace on the mound. They're +104. I like it. Reds have been hot. They've been a very hot team lately. We've seen what they could do against the Braves. They had that great series against the Braves. They've been rolling since then. But I think Josiah Gray and the Nationals get the best of them tonight, especially at home. And I love the +104 money line as a home team. Those are my 3 picks for you. Let's sweep the board again. At least go 2 for 3. I like it. Let's do it.
Very good. Very, very good. Man, that's considered a bold pick, right? The
Oh,
Nats?
Oh, yeah. They suck. They're terrible.
Yeah, they're horrible.
But they're hot. Lane Thomas is hot right now. The rest of the team, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think they could get cooking tonight. Ashcraft is not that great of a pitcher.
Yeah.
And he's on the road.
The
Josiah
Reds,
Gray, really good.
the Reds starting pitching has been the one question mark, hasn't it? I mean, their bullpen is solid.
Their starting pitcher's been a little sus. It has been.
Yeah. I like the Reds, though. I had a full show on Crosstown Crosstalk
Reds,
dedicated to the
hot.
Reds.
They've been hot. Josiah Gray, though, fantastic. I'd take him on the Cubs any day.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Great. For sure. Yeah, great stuff, Frank. I hope you win again. Go sweep the board again. Get that shit. Get to the 50s before you hit the 40s in losses. Can you make that happen?
Sick. That would be sick. Imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of baseball, I freaking hate Rick Hahn, the chief of the White Sox. Yesterday he talked about the White Sox are 13 games under 500. They're 7 games out of the division. And they suck. And Rick Hahn talked to the media yesterday and mentioned doing damage in October. Well, you know what you're going to be doing in October, Rick Hahn? You're going to be wondering how the HU still have a freaking job, and you're going to be playing golf and watching Justin Fields and the Bears. How about that? That's what you're going to be doing in October, Rick. Damage. Who are you going to do damage again? If you somehow went on a little bit of a winning streak here in the AL Central and won the division, the Astros would smoke you. The Texas Rangers would smoke you. The Yankees would smoke you. The Blue Jays would smoke you. The Rays would smoke you. Everyone would smoke you like a big old pig on 4th of July. Disgusting comments from that clueless asshole Rick Hahn. I can't wait for this baseball season to be over. I'm so sick and tired of the White Sox. Credit. I had the scoop. I tweeted it before it became official. Luis Robert Jr. in the home run derby. That'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
White Sox player in the home run derby. That's been a while. I think Todd Frazier was the last one.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so it'll be nice to have a White Sox player in the home run derby. That'll be fun. The All-Star game. Love baseball in general, but as far as the White Sox season, PU. Tune in to Crosstalk to see me break it down.
Tomorrow was like gagging over there.
Tomorrow's show is going to be basically me shitting on the White Sox for an hour.
Vinny hears his name, he's like,
Disgusting. Everything about the White Sox stinks. Their owner stinks. Their coach stinks. Their previous coach stinks. Their GM stinks. All the players except Robert and Cease and Giolito stink. Oh, they just stink all around. Stinky, stinky, stinky team.
See, I agree.
Yeah, they suck ass. The A's have a better chance of winning the World Series this year than the White Sox.
Yeah, you're insane.
I'm not insane. They beat the White Sox. They took 2 out of 3 from them.
I don't care. They don't have a better stat. They don't. They don't.
No, you're right, because their chances are both 0. They have the same odds to win the World Series.
The
0.
White Sox are doing damage in October.
No shot. They'll be lucky to win a game in September. They'll probably go 2-20 in September. Just a nasty, disgusting team. Make sure you read all of my stuff at fansided.com, covering all Chicago sports, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the New Jersey Devils. Very excited to bring all of you that on twitter.com. I actually have my article about Luis Robert Jr. making it to the All-Star game just about finished here, and it will be going live within minutes of this show ending. So you could go read that, and then, of course, tomorrow on Crosstown Crosstalk, we'll break down Luis Robert Jr. making it to the All-Star game in addition to the All-Star game and the Chicago Cubs players, Dansby Swanson, Marcus Stroman, and Justin Steele all making it to the All-Star game, as well as the National League All-Stars. We'll break down the home run derby field. Shohei Ohtani's got a blister on his pitching hand. That's not good, so he's probably not going to pitch in the All-Star game, but he might break Judge's single-season home run record in the American League 1 year after Judge did it, and it took 50 years for someone to do it until last year. So we'll just dissect all of that tomorrow. Frank, they can read your shit where?
Apptrigger.com. A lot of great content. Wrote some articles on Bedard. So if you like hockey and video games, or if you just like hockey, even come read it. Maybe you'll start liking video games. So, yeah.
For sure. And then next week on Bardown Talking Hockey is where we get into the off-season type of shit.
Yeah.
Where it'll be less newsy. I'm sure there'll be a big signing. By next show, Tarasenko.
You know what I just thought about? Next show is the last show before the Bags tournament.
There you go. That too. We'll break down that. I'm sure like Tarasenko will be signed. Maybe we'll have more clarity on a couple other people. But for the most part, the newsy portion of things.
Yeah.
We'll talk about development camp. We'll see Bedard in Blackhawks gear for the first time, like actual hockey gear, not like a hat and a t-shirt. The Devils, same thing. July 12th, I think. I don't know the exact date. It's coming up though. So we'll break down that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we'll be talking about snacks and candy during the off season as well. And I noticed that Joey Chestnut's DMs are open on Twitter.
That would be sick. Try it. Let's get him on.
Can you?
I'd eat a hot dog, I think, while we did it.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That would be unreal.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. I'm going to wait for the dust to settle a little bit from all the hype.
That's fine.
I'll probably wait a couple days and then I'll stick my nose where it don't belong, as I do every time we get a sick guest. We're overdue to have Bucci too. Maybe I'll think about reaching out to him soon.
Okay.
But
Sounds
well, we got Big Brother coming up too, right? Less than a month.
August 2nd.
Yep. We
I
don't know the
can't
cast yet though.
No, we won't find that out till like a week before, a week and a half.
Oh,
So
that's kind of annoying.
We got a few weeks.
Is it always like that?
It's usually like 2 weeks. And they actually go in the house earlier, obviously, than August 2nd because they need to create content for the first episode. So they always enter the house like a week before. So like a week before that, we kind of get the cast list.
Got it. That makes sense.
A few weeks, maybe like mid-20s of July 24th, 5th, 6th, maybe. Right around there. Maybe a little sooner, depending. I mean, if it's a returning cast, because I think they're going to do something big, we might know a little bit earlier, but we'll see.
For sure. Looking forward to it. That's our show. I hope everybody enjoyed watching on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the places you can watch podcasts. If you're joining late and you want to catch the beginning parts of the episode on the audio version, you can head on over to Apple and Spotify and check us out there. It's really, really fun. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Again, tomorrow, Crosstown Crosstalk, 2 p.m. All sorts of great things going on here at the Barroom Network. Make sure you're always tuned in. Click the little bell on YouTube if you want to be notified whenever we go live. That's obviously something that you should be doing because we bring great content all over different forms of entertainment. And I'm looking forward to the next time I get to appear on this show. Frank, it's been good chatting with you as always. I hope everybody enjoys their rest of their week and gets to the weekend safely. And as always, thank you for listening.